Chapter 61, The Forgetting Curse and the True Face. It was Friday, and the defense against the dark arts class was as dreadful as ever under Professor Lockhart's guidance. He persisted in his usual antics, assigning students roles as trolls and werewolves to reenact scenes from his so-called glorious past. It was literally the worst class I've ever had, Neville lamented, looking utterly miserable. Even Malfoy wasn't spared, being dragged into playing a vampire. John, however, remained uninvolved, his glare deterring Lockhart from asking him to impersonate a Yeti. Hermione found herself puzzled by Lockhart's incompetence, especially given his ability to write such compelling articles. She couldn't reconcile the man's reputation with the reality of his teaching. Amidst the chaos, Ron noticed Neville carrying a sword on his back, and couldn't help but ask, "Neville, why are you carrying a sword?" Still annoyed from his earlier mishap in Charms class, where his wand had accidentally struck Professor Flitwick, Ron was looking for a distraction. Harry, equally surprised, asked, "Are you planning to confront Malfoy with that sword?" "No, it's for John. He said he wanted to make me stronger, to turn me into a juggernaut," Neville explained, feeling the weight of curious stares. He wasn't keen on carrying the sword, but John had insisted it was part of his training. Harry pondered this, recalling how John had once wielded a large sword to battle a troll. Maybe John is trying to protect Neville from Malfoy. After all, Malfoy seems to fear John the most, he mused. Ron, though skeptical that carrying a sword would transform Neville into someone like John, didn't dismiss the idea entirely. "Let's visit Hagrid tomorrow," Harry suggested, a plan quickly agreed upon by Hermione, who had no prior engagements. As they walked through the hallway, they encountered John. "Hi, Ron. I've been looking for you," John greeted, catching Ron off guard. "What's up, John?" Ron asked, curious. "You forgot I promised to repair your wand," John reminded him, holding up a small bag with a smile. "I've been gathering materials to see if I can fix it for you." Ron, thrilled, grasped John's hand in gratitude. "You have no idea, John. My wand hit Professor Flitwick in the head today. It's been a disaster." John examined the wand, which was crudely taped together. "Aspen wood with a unicorn hair core," he noted, understanding Ron's attachment to the wand, which had originally belonged to his brother Charlie. Seeing Ron's dismay at the prospect of giving up the wand, John proposed an alternative. "This wand is beyond repair, but we might salvage the core for a new one. I have the perfect material for it." John's suggestion sparked hope in Ron, especially when Harry offered to buy him a new wand. However, Ron hesitated to accept Harry's generosity, not wanting to rely on his friend's wealth. John then extracted the unicorn hair core from the damaged wand, promising to craft a new one for Ron. "It'll take about a week. You can use this spare wand of mine in the meantime," John said, handing Ron a shorter wand with a similar core. After ensuring Ron was taken care of, John turned to Neville. "Let's go, Neville. You're training with me today." Neville, already exhausted from John's rigorous training, could barely lift his arms as they left. John had chosen a section of the Homping Willow for Neville's new wand, a testament to his commitment to strengthening his friends. John Wick, with his newly acquired wand, felt its potential enhanced by the unique wood and its inherent sensitivity. As he made his way back, he encountered Gilderoy Lockhart, the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, known for his embellished tales of bravery. Lockhart, with a smile plastered on his face, extended an invitation to John. "Mr. Wick, perhaps we could have a chat in my office," he suggested. John, curious about Lockhart's intentions but not particularly concerned, agreed and followed him to the office, which was adorned with countless photos of Lockhart himself, showcasing his vanity and narcissism. Once seated, Lockhart began, "I've heard about your remarkable feat of defeating a troll during your first year. You're quite the talented wizard. Of course, it's not quite on par with my 5 consecutive Wizard Weekly Awards for the most charming smile." Despite his attempt to steer the conversation towards his own achievements, John's blank stare soon made Lockhart feel awkward. Clearing his throat, Lockhart shifted the topic. "I'm curious about your thoughts on Defense Against the Dark Arts, and, well, on me." Lockhart's tenure at Hogwarts was driven by a desire for fame and to silence critics skeptical of his abilities and fabricated adventures. However, His lackluster performance in class had quickly diminished his stature among the students. Lockhart, noticing the respect John commanded from both Slytherin and Gryffindor students, earnestly proposed, "I'm in need of an assistant to help manage certain tasks. My celebrity duties are quite demanding, after all." John, unimpressed, responded bluntly, "Are you suggesting that you're unfit for teaching and wish to resign? You're aware of the curse on the Defense Against the Dark Arts position, aren't you?" Lockhart, taken aback by John's directness, defensively listed his accolades, but was quickly interrupted. John agreed to assist, but only during second-year classes, expressing skepticism about the authenticity of Lockhart's tales. Frustrated by John's lack of reverence and realizing his plan to maintain a facade of competence was crumbling, Lockhart decided to take drastic action. As John turned to leave, Lockhart drew his wand and cast Obliviate, hoping to erase John's memory of their conversation and preserve his reputation. However, the spell was thwarted by an amulet John wore, which activated a protective charm. John, now fully aware of Lockhart's deceitful nature, confronted him. "It seems you're not the honorable man you claim to be." Lockhart, shocked by the failure of his usually infallible spell, watched in horror as John retaliated. A burst of white light filled the office, shattering the framed photos of Lockhart and leaving the room in disarray. Lockhart, now facing the consequences of his actions, leaned against the wall, defeated and exposed. Pinned against the wall, Lockhart's face was a canvas of sheer panic. "Wait, I'm leaving Hogwarts right now. Please, just let me go," he pleaded, his voice laced with desperation. He hadn't anticipated that this young wizard would actually have the audacity to act. The spell, aimed directly at his head, held the terrifying potential to make his head burst like an overinflated balloon. As he begged for mercy, Lockhart's hands stealthily inched towards his wand, a dishonest move born out of fear. However, before his fingers could grasp the wand, a blast of white light emanated from John's wand, striking Lockhart's hand and creating a gaping hole. The pain and shock rendered Lockhart immobile, fear rooting him to the spot. John, with his wand still pointed at Lockhart, contemplated his next move, his gaze unwavering. The intensity of the moment hung heavily in the air. John's decisive action had not only thwarted Lockhart's attempt to defend himself, but also underscored the seriousness of the confrontation. Lockhart, now visibly shaken and wounded, could only wait in trepidation, wondering about his fate at the hands of this determined young wizard. Chapter 62, Nimbus 2001 and the Slug. Ever since John had set his sights on becoming the next Dumbledore of the wizarding world, he had been diligently building his network of allies. Figures like Dharma Alex, Mundungus, and Tang Mi were among his contacts outside Hogwarts. Gilderoy Lockhart, despite his lackluster magical abilities, struggling even with tasks as simple as handling house elves, boasted a vast network of book fans and publishing connections. This intrigued John. "Gilderoy Lockhart, you have two choices. Tell me the truth willingly, or face the consequences of Veritaserum," John declared, casually producing a bottle of the potion from his bag. The mere sight of it sent Lockhart into a panic. With his limited magical prowess, the thought of Veritaserum wreaking havoc on his mind was terrifying. Trapped by the wall behind him, Lockhart had no choice but to capitulate. Defeated, he slumped to the ground, his resolve crumbling as he recounted his rise to fame through the unethical use of the memory charm to steal and claim the adventures of others as his own. John listened, his expression a mix of amusement and disbelief. "So, you're telling me you've built your career on the stories of others?" John asked, conjuring a chair with a flick of his wand and sitting down with a sardonic smile. "I must admit, I didn't expect you to be such a master of manipulation, albeit with questionable ethics and a penchant for falsehoods." Lockhart, sensing that John wasn't going to immediately expose him, stood up, his demeanor stiff. "I had aspirations of becoming an adventurer, but my lack of strength was a constant barrier. The memory charm was the only spell I could wield effectively," he admitted. His dreams of adventure had quickly turned into a series of humiliating defeats, until a chance encounter with an old wizard in a tavern gave him the nefarious idea that would launch his career. By erasing the wizard's memory of their encounter and claiming the story as his own, Lockhart transformed into the beloved figure known for his most charming smile. His method of appropriating and embellishing the tales of others propelled him to stardom, making him a favorite among publishers and young women alike. However, this success led him down a path of vanity and deceit. "You have a certain talent," John remarked, refilling his cup with tea. "But don't worry, I have no intention of expelling you from Hogwarts. You can stay and continue teaching." "Really?" Lockhart responded, taken aback by the unexpected reprieve. "What do you want in return? I'll do anything as long as you keep my secret." John fixed Lockhart with a pointed look. "I want your assistance," he stated plainly. Lockhart, momentarily confused and slightly alarmed by the ambiguous request, stammered, "Could you possibly mean something else? I fear my fans would be heartbroken, and besides, you're quite young." John nearly choked on his drink at Lockhart's misinterpretation. Setting his cup down, he clarified, "I need your help with my endeavors, not whatever you're thinking." Relieved but curious, Lockhart wondered what tasks a second-year student like John could possibly need help with. John elaborated, "You're a clever man, Lockhart, but your kind of cleverness has a short shelf life. I'll ensure you keep your position as the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, but in exchange, you'll assist me. It might involve writing letters or reaching out to your contacts." A spark of understanding lit up Lockhart's eyes. Over the years, he had cultivated relationships with influential figures, including noblewomen from ancient pureblood families. With a word from Lockhart, these connections could prove invaluable to John's ambitions. In a moment of unexpected alliance, John extended his hand to a visibly embarrassed Professor Lockhart, offering a smile that bridged the gap between them. "Let's work well together, Professor Lockhart," he said, sealing their partnership. Lockhart, unsure of how John could possibly aid him, but recognizing no other viable options, reached out and completed the handshake. On Saturday, John had intended to spend his day within the confines of the Gryffindor common room. However, his plans were abruptly changed when Malfoy, accompanied by the persistent knocking of Goyle and Crabbe, summoned him outside his bedroom door. Flaunting the Nimbus 2001, the latest advancement in the Nimbus Broom series, Malfoy boasted, "Watch closely, John. Today, we'll see the Gryffindors utterly humiliated." The Slytherin Quidditch team, now equipped with 7 Nimbus 2001 brooms, had managed to secure a special permission slip from Professor Snape. They claimed the need to acquaint themselves with their new brooms as the reason, cunningly scheduling their practice during Gryffindor's allotted time. John, wanting no part in these schemes, had initially resisted joining. Yet, the relentless persistence of Goyle and Crabbe left him with little choice. Upon their arrival at the Quidditch pitch, John stood aside as Malfoy eagerly stepped forward, ready to taunt. Meanwhile, Harry, initially planning to visit Hagrid, found himself roped into a training session by Wood, the Quidditch-obsessed captain. Ron and Hermione, along with Colin Creevey, who never ceased to snap pictures, had come to watch Harry train. Wood, paranoid, suspected Colin of being a Slytherin spy, a notion George quickly dismissed, pointing out the unnecessary need for spies, as the Slytherins had boldly shown up themselves. The confrontation escalated when Marcus Flint, the Slytherin captain, arrived with his team, claiming the pitch for their practice. Despite Wood's protests and claims of having booked the pitch, Flint produced a note from Professor Snape, granting them permission. The tension peaked when Malfoy, smirking smugly, revealed himself as the new Seeker, a fact that irked the Gryffindors, especially Fred Weasley, who remembered Lucius Malfoy's altercation with his father. The unveiling of the 7 Nimbus 2001 brooms, a gift from Lucius Malfoy, left the Gryffindor team in dismay. However, Hermione boldly defended Gryffindor's honor, stating that their team didn't need to buy their way in. Her words struck a nerve with Malfoy, who retorted with a derogatory remark, only to stop short, mindful of John's presence. The situation nearly escalated into a brawl, but Ron, fueled by anger and a newly replaced wand, cast a spell at Malfoy, causing him to fall to the ground. The Slytherins, now facing a united front from Gryffindor, found themselves at a disadvantage, a moment that underscored the deep-seated rivalries and the unexpected courage found within the hearts of those willing to stand up for their friends and values. Feeling an unsettling sensation in his throat, as though something was burrowing its way out, he opened his mouth only to expel a fat, slimy slug, an experience that left him feeling nauseated. The situation quickly spiraled out of control, with Malfoy helplessly continuing to vomit slugs, an affliction that promptly sent him to the school infirmary. In the aftermath, Ron found himself encircled by his fellow Gryffindors, their cheers and shouts of encouragement making it clear they thought he had done something commendable. This adulation caused Ron to puff out his chest in pride, a reaction that didn't go unnoticed even by Hermione, who regarded him with a look of admiration. John, observing the scene from a distance, shook his head in disapproval. Draco really should learn to pick his battles more wisely. In this world, power dictates right from wrong. Mocking those who are stronger than you is a fool's errand, he mused. To John, using blood status as a measure of one's worth seemed utterly absurd. Despite his friendships lying on both sides of the conflict, he couldn't help but feel that Draco had brought this upon himself. Sure, Draco could have attempted to counter the spell, but John believed that it was necessary to teach him a lesson. Reflecting on the events, John realized that had he not tampered with Ron's wand, Draco might not have found himself in such a predicament. It seemed to him a clear case of poetic justice. You reap what you sow. This incident underscored a harsh reality within their magical world, where power dynamics and prejudices often dictated the course of events. John couldn't help but ponder the implications of their actions and the lessons they might take away from this experience. Chapter 63. Restoration and Assistance. John made his way to Hagrid's hut, seeking oak resin for the intricate task of wand production and repair. The process was not only about gathering materials, but also involved meticulous polishing and patient waiting. Upon his arrival, he found Lockhart bombarding Hagrid with unsolicited advice on preventing nymphs from entering wells, showcasing his so-called expertise. Knocking on the door, John was promptly greeted by a relieved Hagrid, eager to escape Lockhart's self-promotion. Lockhart, attempting to sell his book to Hagrid, was taken aback by John's presence. Seizing the opportunity, John reminded Lockhart of his textbook obligations, providing a polite but firm excuse for him to leave. Lockhart, grasping at the lifeline, hurried away as if pursued by a fire dragon. Inside, Hagrid expressed his joy at having a friend visit. He had already procured a bag of materials John had requested. As they settled down with hot black tea and rock cakes, John inquired about the location of an oak tree for the resin he needed. Hagrid, ever the enthusiastic host, assured him of his knowledge of the Forbidden Forest and promised to fetch the resin. While John waited, Harry, Hermione, and a visibly distressed Ron arrived, seeking Hagrid's help for a curse Malfoy had cast on Ron. John, realizing the situation, diagnosed Ron with the Ascaris curse, based on his symptoms and extensive reading. Hagrid returned, delighted to see the young visitors, and handed Ron a bucket for relief. John, taking charge, instructed Ron to expose his belly, revealing a disturbing bulge indicative of the curse. With a precise spell, John alleviated Ron's discomfort, expelling the parasitic worms. Hagrid, impressed, inquired about the source of John's knowledge, to which John credited the library, though he had actually learned the spell in the Gryffindor Chamber of Secrets, a place rife with arcane curses and spells. Among these was the Blood Curse, a malevolent spell that transformed the afflicted into a serpent over time. This piqued John's curiosity about the potential effects of combining such a curse with a werewolf bite. With the oak resin in hand, John prepared to leave, expressing his gratitude to Hagrid for his assistance. The day's events had not only showcased John's growing expertise in magical healing, but also deepened the bonds of friendship and trust within the Hogwarts community. Hagrid expressed his gratitude repeatedly, and after John departed, he remarked with a sense of emotion, "John truly is the most remarkable young wizard I've ever encountered, reminiscent of Riddle. No, I mean, you're all exceptional as well." Noticing the curious glances from the three young friends, Hagrid hastily waved his hands, dismissing the topic. "Riddle," he echoed, his tone turning somber. "Let's not speak of that name." It was clear that the mention of Riddle stirred uncomfortable memories for Hagrid, and although the trio was intrigued, they respected his wish not to delve further into the subject. Hagrid, despite his tendency to be overly talkative, clearly preferred to leave this part of his past unspoken. Upon returning to the Gryffindor common room, John embarked on crafting a wand from humping willow branches, incorporating unicorn hair into its core. He meticulously smoothed its edges and treated it with oak resin, a substance believed to imbue magical properties into the wand, enhancing its compatibility with its wielder. Following this, John turned his attention to alchemy, discovering that refining items not only honed his skills, but also seemed to accelerate his proficiency, even in the absence of a tangible measure of progress. After preparing a batch of items for Johnny Silverhand's shop, John arranged for their delivery through Basil. The shop's business was slowly gaining traction, its reputation spreading gradually. A letter from Tommy Shelby revealed concerns among Nocturne Alley's wizards regarding the shop. John advised caution in his response, suggesting that it was best to avoid drawing the Auror's attention, especially given their current crackdown on dark artifacts, some of which were stocked in Johnny Silverhand's shop. Meanwhile, John encouraged Tang Mi to reach out to werewolf acquaintances, hinting at plans to leverage his abilities. Additionally, Dharma Alex received confirmation from the Order of Merlin about an upcoming award ceremony, with the Merlin First Class Medal almost assuredly within reach. After addressing these matters, John left the dormitory, committed to fulfilling his promise to allow Lockhart to remain at Hogwarts. He made his way to the Humping Willow, skillfully navigating the passage to the Shrieking Shack and rearranging its contents with a levitation charm. During the next Defense Against the Dark Arts class, students were surprised to see John standing beside the podium. Lockhart, ever the showman, apologized for his previous teaching approach and introduced John as his assistant, claiming that John had been well prepared under his guidance. Despite Lockhart's convincing performance, John couldn't help but roll his eyes at the charade. Lockhart, dressed in flamboyant robes, announced the day's lesson on troll combat with his usual theatrical flair. Despite his lack of practical skill, Lockhart's ability to engage and excite the students was undeniable. John, demonstrating his proficiency in transfiguration, transformed a table into a fence to prepare the classroom, a feat that would surely impress Professor McGonagall. Lockhart, poised and confident, prepared to deliver a lesson that, while perhaps lacking in substance, promised to be memorable for all in attendance. It wasn't hard to discern that he had a penchant for crafting tales about pilfering the achievements of others. He spoke of his book, Walking with Trolls, with undue seriousness, proceeding to share what he claimed were the vulnerabilities of trolls. The troll's cranium is notably delicate. A simple levitation charm, causing its own club to fall upon its head, is sufficient to incapacitate it, he explained. Now, Lockhart clapped his hands together, signaling the entrance of John, his assistant. "Let my assistant demonstrate for everyone," he announced, his voice tinged with a hint of showmanship. The students exchanged puzzled glances as John, with a flick of his wand, unlocked a previously secured cabinet. A low, grumbling noise emanated from within, causing a stir among the students, particularly three who recognized the sound all too well, the unmistakable voice of a troll, similar to the one they had encountered in their first year. Curiosity mingled with apprehension as they pondered how a troll could possibly fit inside such a confined space. Unbeknownst to them, John had employed a clumancy to conjure the image of a troll in his mind. The boggart, sensing his fear, transformed into a troll, bursting through the cabinet doors. "It's truly a monster," Ron exclaimed, his voice laced with terror. John, however, remained focused, his gaze fixed on the club in the troll's grasp. As the creature lumbered towards him, he acted swiftly, casting Wingardium Leviosa. The club was wrenched from the troll's grip, soaring upwards before crashing down upon its head with a thud. The boggart, now in the guise of a troll, exhibited the creature's supposed vulnerability, collapsing in a heap. The room erupted in applause as the students realized the ease with which the creature had been subdued. Lockhart, seizing the moment, declared, "As expected under my tutelage, John Wick has performed admirably. 10 points to Slytherin." This class marked a departure from the previously lackluster sessions. The atmosphere was charged with excitement as the boggart, continuing to assume the form of a troll, was repeatedly outwitted. By the end of the class, the students' opinions of Lockhart had taken a turn for the better, now regarding him as a competent instructor. Chapter 64, Percy and Powers. You can see, Professor Lockhart's real teaching level is not what it seems. Hermione immediately sought out Harry and Ron after the Defense Against the Dark Arts class to defend Lockhart's reputation. However, Ron was even more convinced of Lockhart's incompetence, pointing out, Lockhart didn't even take out his wand during the whole class. It was more John teaching than Lockhart. Indeed, when Neville struggled with the levitating charm, it was John who stepped in, using transfiguration to control the troll, while Lockhart appeared scared and hid behind the podium. But his class was very engaging, wasn't it? Hermione attempted to argue, though deep down she felt conflicted as she watched her idol falter. Ron shrugged, expressing indifference. If John could teach in the future, I wouldn't mind Lockhart's presence. Harry, observing the argument, recalled the incident when he was sent to respond to Lockhart's letter. Due to Ron and Malfoy's exchange of jinxes, both he and Ron faced detention. Fortunately, Malfoy's influential father didn't escalate the situation at Hogwarts, thanks to John's intervention, for which Harry was grateful. At that moment, Filch, the caretaker, was seen furiously cleaning frog brains smeared all over the walls, a prank undoubtedly orchestrated by the Weasley twins. As a squib, Filch lacked magical means to clean up efficiently. Percy Weasley approached his brothers with a stern demeanor, attempting to reprimand them. You shouldn't be playing pranks like this. Come on, Percy, the twins retorted, mocking his aspirations. Maybe you can get into the Ministry of Magic, since you're as dull as the people there. Percy, who often felt like an outlier within the Weasley family and Gryffindor house due to his serious nature and ambition for power, left the scene in frustration after issuing a warning. The twins made faces behind his back, and even Ron found Percy's rigid approach unpalatable. In contrast, in the Slytherin common room, Draco Malfoy boasted to John about dissuading his father from making a scene at Hogwarts. John, however, advised Draco, don't act like a child. A powerful wizard doesn't rely on his father. You can retaliate with a curse, but never let others look down on you. This advice resonated with Draco, who realized the satisfaction in handling matters himself rather than relying on his father's influence. Daphne Greengrass approached John with admiration, praising his skill in transfiguration. When she skeptically mentioned Lockhart's involvement, John maintained Lockhart's image, attributing the success to him, despite Daphne's disbelief. John's actions not only preserved Lockhart's reputation, but also subtly highlighted the importance of self-reliance and integrity among his peers, setting a powerful example for both houses. John Wick, a name that had become synonymous with both fear and respect within the hallowed halls of Hogwarts, had a knack for seeing beyond the surface. As he conversed with Percy Weasley, he couldn't help but reflect on the complexities of the individuals around him. Percy, often overshadowed by his more flamboyant siblings, possessed a quiet diligence and ambition that set him apart. It was this very ambition that led John to ponder Percy's future, one that, according to the lore of Harry Potter, would see him momentarily stray from his family's path. My God, I don't understand why my mother is so fond of him, John mused with a smile, his thoughts momentarily drifting to Gilderoy Lockhart, the current Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. Lockhart, with his questionable competence and penchant for embellishment, was a source of amusement and frustration. Yet beneath the veneer of his exaggerated tales, there lay kernels of truth and usefulness. If one were to sift through the chaff of Lockhart's narratives, they could find genuinely valuable insights into magical defense. It was a pity, John thought, that Lockhart himself seemed oblivious to the true worth of his own teachings. John had taken it upon himself to refine the curriculum for Lockhart, focusing on practical defense strategies against magical creatures and dark arts. His efforts had not gone unnoticed. Many students, initially skeptical, had come to appreciate the depth of knowledge John brought to the class. Even Professor McGonagall had commended him on his exceptional skill in transfiguration, a praise that filled the Slytherin house with pride. Under John's guidance, Slytherin surged ahead in the house points competition, much to the chagrin of the other houses. As John exited the room of requirement, he stumbled upon a familiar scene. Percy Weasley, ever the prefect, was in the midst of reprimanding his younger brothers, George and Fred, for their latest nocturnal escapade. Percy's dedication to his duties, coupled with his impeccable academic record, made John see him in a new light. Despite the traditional rivalry between their houses, John felt a certain kinship with Percy. "I should give you a warning. Although I won't deduct your points, you have violated the school's regulations," Percy said, adjusting his glasses with the air of someone born to enforce rules. John, unfazed, saw an opportunity to bridge the gap between them. "Percy Weasley, we haven't really had the chance to talk, have we?" he remarked, hoping to engage Percy in a more personal conversation. Percy, taken aback by the sudden overture, hesitated. "Sorry, I still have to help the professor with inspections." John, sensing Percy's reluctance, offered an olive branch. "How about we discuss this over a cup of black tea in the Defense Against the Dark Arts office?" he suggested, his tone casual yet inviting. Percy, realizing that John was not just any student, but the assistant to the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, allowed himself a moment of relaxation. "Okay, but only for a short while," he conceded. "That's enough," John replied with a smile, his mind already racing with possibilities. He knew the trajectory of Percy's future, one marked by ambition and a temporary estrangement from his family. Yet, in this moment, John saw an opportunity to perhaps alter that path, to forge a connection that might steer Percy away from the mistakes that awaited him. As they made their way to the office, John couldn't help but wonder if this small act of kindness could change the course of Percy's life, making him a memorable ally in the intricate tapestry of the wizarding world. John pondered the situation, recalling Percy Weasley's ambitious climb within the Ministry of Magic. Percy's determination to ascend the ranks, even at the cost of straining his relationship with his own family, struck a chord with John. He recognized a similar ambition within himself, a relentless drive to succeed. It was this very spirit of perseverance and ambition that John admired and sought for his own endeavors. Considering his options, John realized that Percy could be a valuable ally. The contacts and resources at his disposal were enticing, and he believed they could be just as attractive to Percy. The idea of recruiting Percy Weasley began to take shape in his mind. John understood that leveraging his connections could offer Percy the opportunities he sought, thereby benefiting both of them. John's thoughts were strategic, focusing on how to approach Percy with a proposition that would be mutually advantageous. He knew that convincing Percy would require presenting a compelling case, one that highlighted the benefits and minimized the risks. The potential for collaboration between them was clear to John, and he felt confident in his ability to persuade Percy to join forces. As John mulled over his plan, he considered the best way to reach out to Percy. He knew that a direct and honest approach would likely resonate with Percy, who valued ambition but also integrity. John began to outline his proposal, ensuring it was both enticing and respectful of Percy's aspirations and values. In John's mind, this partnership could mark the beginning of a powerful alliance, one that would propel them both to new heights within the magical community. The thought of working alongside Percy Weasley, harnessing their combined ambition and resources, filled John with a sense of anticipation and determination. He was ready to take the next step, confident in the path he had chosen. Chapter 65. Myrtle and the Defense Against the Dark Arts Honors Office. Gilderoy Lockhart was diligently responding to his fan mail when a knock interrupted his task. He sighed, half annoyed, half flattered, assuming another eager fan sought his autograph. Fame and vanity were his guilty pleasures, even if they threatened to exhaust his signing hand. Upon opening the door, his ready smile faltered into an awkward grin. Mr. Wick, what brings you here at this hour?" His reaction puzzled Percy, given Lockhart's previous claims of mentoring John. Yet here he was, seemingly in awe of him. "Professor Lockhart, we need to discuss some matters. I hope you don't mind sparing us a moment of your time," John stated, his tone polite but his demeanor suggesting otherwise. Percy, following John's lead, entered with a respectful nod. "Professor, I see you're still hard at work on the textbook, even at this late hour." Lockhart, slightly flustered, quickly hid an envelope under some papers. "Ah, yes, the textbook," he mumbled, trying to regain his composure. After Percy closed the door, Lockhart played the host, serving tea as if he were a waiter rather than a professor. John, meanwhile, casually conjured an extra chair for Percy with a flick of his wand. "I've developed a sort of camaraderie with Professor Lockhart over the holidays. We're pen pals," John explained, noticing Percy's surprised look. He added, "After all, building connections is crucial for any accomplished wizard, and Professor Lockhart is no exception." Lockhart beamed at the compliment, while Percy, not used to such pragmatism in his family, found himself warming up to John's perspective. John unwrapped a piece of toffee, letting its sweetness mingle with the taste of his tea. Likewise, networking shouldn't be confined to the outside world. "Percy, I'm aware of your ambition to become head boy. Gaining support from all four houses is key." John's insight into Percy's ambitions was spot on. Handing Percy a piece of taffy, he added with a smirk, "I'll take care of Slytherin for you." Percy, puzzled and slightly intimidated by John's presence, hesitated. "Why would you help me?" "Connections," John replied, his tone laden with meaning. "You're a promising individual, destined for greatness beyond Hogwarts. Why not forge a beneficial friendship now?" John suggested leveraging Lockhart's influence to boost Percy's reputation among students, proposing the role of an additional assistant in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class as an ideal platform. Percy, enticed by the offer, accepted the taffy and the proposition with a smile. "You're right. Connections are indeed vital." Their handshake sealed the deal, with Lockhart as a witness to their agreement. After Percy's departure, Lockhart voiced his concerns. "Aren't you worried he'll uncover my secret? Having another assistant might be too risky." John reassured him. "He won't betray you as long as you continue to empower him. Stick to the lesson plans I've provided and avoid using magic." He cautioned Lockhart to keep his theatrics in check, emphasizing the importance of maintaining their carefully constructed facade. John Wick, despite his skepticism about Gilderoy Lockhart's magical abilities, which were so lacking that it was a wonder how he graduated from Hogwarts, couldn't help but offer a helping hand. Lockhart, always eager to impress, seemed oblivious to his own shortcomings. From his bag, John produced a snail amulet and a ring adorned with emeralds, placing them on the table before Lockhart. "Use these when you're in a tight spot," John advised, his tone flat. "They're enchanted with the iron armor curse and the petrification curse. Consider them props to help you maintain appearances when necessary." Lockhart, viewing the items as treasures, was grateful. The recent doubts cast on his abilities had weighed heavily on him. "Thank you, Mr. Wick. I'll fulfill my duties diligently," Lockhart promised. As John stood to leave, he added, "Call me John. Remember, building connections is crucial for a wizard's success." Lockhart, initially taken aback, realized John's intentions were genuine, aimed at fostering alliances, much like he had done with Percy by offering power and fame. "I'll write to you after my term," Lockhart said, making a note to himself. John nodded and departed. As October ushered in a significant drop in temperature, a flu outbreak swept through the young wizards at Hogwarts. Madame Pomfrey, ever prepared, concocted refreshing potions that, despite causing one's ears to smoke, worked wonders. John, known for his proficiency in potions, was enlisted to assist. After delivering the medicine to the school hospital, he encountered a commotion in the corridor on the second floor. Approaching the source, he found Peeves causing havoc in the girls' bathroom, tormenting the ghost of a female student, Myrtle, who wailed about being bullied. "Peeves, that's enough," John commanded. The poltergeist, upon recognizing John, panicked, accidentally toppling a suit of medieval armor in his haste to flee. "Was all that really necessary?" John muttered, watching Peeves' exaggerated reaction. Inside the bathroom, Myrtle continued to sob. John, attempting to offer comfort, was met with a chilling scream as Myrtle flew through him, leaving him feeling as though doused in cold water. "I was just trying to," he started, but Myrtle's renewed crying cut him off. John, puzzled by Myrtle's attire, which seemed outdated even for Hogwarts, inquired if she was a student. Myrtle, offended, retreated into a broken toilet. Shaking his head at the complexity of ghostly interactions, John exited the bathroom, writing a malfunction sign before returning to the Slytherin common room. There, he found Daphne scolding Goyle and Crabbe for their gluttony, with Pansy making a snide remark about their appetites. Upon John's entrance, Daphne, adopting a more refined demeanor, handed him 2 envelopes. "Your dog brought these," she said, referring to John's pet. Tom brought them? John asked, intrigued. Noticing 3 ink dots on one of the letters, he frowned, suspecting it was from Johnny. The subtle clues hinted at a message or a call for help, prompting John to carefully open the letter, prepared for whatever message awaited him. John extended a nod of gratitude towards Daphne. "Thank you for helping me take care of Tom." Daphne lifted her head with pride, though a hint of blush colored her ears. Upon returning to the dormitory, John carefully opened the envelope he had been holding. The message inside brought a sense of relief and satisfaction, smoothing the furrow in his brow. Mr. Dharma Alex Belby will be honored on October 10th. It seemed his investments were finally beginning to yield returns. A smile crept across John's face as he pondered the promising news. Chapter 66, The Raided Shop and Luna's Shoes. John couldn't help but smile at the good news he had just received. However, his mood quickly shifted as he opened the second envelope. It was from Tommy Shelby, bearing news that was far from pleasant. "The shop was attacked?" John murmured, his eyes scanning the lines of the letter. Johnny Silverhand's store had been targeted one night by 3 dark wizards. Although they were repelled by Tang Mi, the threat of their return loomed over them. The attackers were linked to Bojin Bok, a name known among those who valued rare and powerful magical artifacts. Despite the shop's modest appearance, it housed treasures that caught the eye of the wrong people. Bojin Bok, feeling threatened by the competition, had sent 3 wizards to eliminate the problem. Unfortunately for him, they were unsuccessful. John's concern deepened. "It seems my worries were justified," he thought. Tang Mi had enlisted the help of 3 werewolves, a decision that now seemed more prudent than ever. These individuals, marginalized by the wizarding world, were grateful for the opportunity to work and prove their worth. The time has come to take a stand, or these problems will only escalate after the award ceremony, John resolved, a determined glint in his eyes. The inhabitants of Nocturne Alley were notorious for their lack of scruples, and it was time they learned a lesson. With the full moon approaching, John planned to unleash the werewolves on those who dared threaten their peace. "I hope this will put an end to our troubles," John mused, snapping his fingers to ignite the letter. He watched it burn to ashes, a blank expression on his face. He then instructed Basil to deliver a letter to Tang Mi, along with an amulet and a spell ring he had prepared. Armed to the teeth, they would launch a decisive strike against Bojin Bok. John also reached out to Alex Dharma, hoping to leverage his influence and pure blood status to prompt the Ministry of Magic to inspect Nocturne Alley. As a recipient of the Order of Merlin, First Class, Dharma had the clout to make it happen. After addressing these pressing matters, John turned his attention to maintaining his network of contacts, much like Lockhart did with his fans. However, John's correspondents were alchemy experts, rune scholars, and potion masters, all introduced by Dharma Alex. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and John diligently replied to each letter. Among the letters was an unexpected note of thanks from Barty Crouch, the director of the International Magic Exchange and Cooperation Department. Crouch expressed his gratitude for John providing Tang Mi, a former Auror-turned-werewolf under his command, with stable employment. Touched by Crouch's sincerity and acknowledgement of his efforts to support werewolves with the sale of Wolfsbane potion, John saw him as a valuable ally and promptly penned a response. After guiding Neville through a workout by the Black Lake, John noticed Neville's curiosity. "Why do we exercise even though we're wizards?" Neville inquired earnestly. "Only a healthy body can support a strong soul," John replied, encouraging Neville to continue his training. Despite Neville's reluctance, he complied, and they parted ways in the corridor. As John navigated the corridors, he stumbled upon Luna Lovegood, barefoot and seemingly in a panic, with Ginny Weasley by her side. Ginny, the newest Gryffindor and looking rather unwell, likely due to a recent cold, caught John's attention. "What are you looking for?" John inquired, noticing their frantic search. Luna, still in a daze, greeted John, her voice trailing off as she resumed her search. "John, it's nice to meet you. I'm glad you didn't get caught in the rain," Ginny Weasley greeted, having already heard of John. She was close friends with Luna Lovegood and expressed her frustration. "It's the Ravenclaws. They've hidden Luna's shoes again." "It's just a game," John tried to soothe. "This is no game." Ginny retorted, her patience thinning. Luna's tolerance for such pranks was something Ginny couldn't comprehend, especially given her own experiences with bullying. She feared losing Luna, a friend she cherished deeply. "Okay, perhaps I can help you find them," John offered, noticing Ginny's agitation and aiming to comfort both her and Luna. Suddenly, Mrs. Norris, the caretaker's cat, appeared from around the corner. John approached her, gently stroked her head, and softly requested, "Mrs. Norris, could you help us find Luna's shoes?" The cat glanced at Luna, seemed to ponder for a moment, and then led them down another corridor. Ginny was taken aback by this scene, knowing Mrs. Norris's reputation for reporting to Filch. They arrived at a corridor on the 5th floor where Mrs. Norris stopped and yowled towards the ceiling. Following her gaze, John spotted Luna's shoes dangling from a fixture above. He promptly retrieved them with a spell and rewarded Mrs. Norris with some cat treats he had on him. "I'll have to find some time to brush your fur soon," he remarked, noticing her matted coat. After Mrs. Norris departed, John bid farewell to Ginny and Luna, leaving them with an offer of further assistance, particularly concerned about Luna's well-being in Ravenclaw. John then made his way to the library, where he had special permission to access the restricted section thanks to a note from Professor Lockhart. Inside, he searched for books on curses, picking up the Book of Spells and another titled Toxic Magic, under the watchful eye of Madame Pince. Later that night, John emerged from the Gryffindor common room with a newly crafted wand in hand, intended for Ron. "Making a wand takes longer than I anticipated," he mused. In Monday's Defense Against the Dark Arts class, Professor Lockhart, ever the delegator, had John demonstrate practical defense techniques. After class, John presented Ron with the new wand, crafted from the old core. Ron was pleasantly surprised by its quality, and Hermione, initially skeptical, admitted its craftsmanship. "Great, now I can make Malfoy pay," Ron exclaimed, eager to settle scores with his rival. Percy Weasley, passing by, greeted them with a pompous air that irked Ron. "You know, Lockhart made him an assistant, and he's been unbearable ever since," Ron complained. Harry, too, noticed Percy's growing arrogance, a side effect of his new position. John, however, failed to see the issue, believing it was beneficial for Percy to have more responsibilities. After bidding farewell to several acquaintances, John made his way to the dormitory with the intention of taking Tom out for a stroll. Upon his return to the bedroom, he was met with the sound of Tom's voice, raised in anger. Gripping his wand tightly, John cautiously entered the room. There he found a house elf, dressed in nothing but a pillowcase, cornered by Tom, who appeared menacing and unyielding. The elf seemed too frightened to retaliate or defend itself. John observed the scene, puzzled and concerned. "What's going on here?" he asked, his tone firm, yet laced with curiosity. The tension in the room was palpable, and it was clear that the situation needed to be diffused quickly. Chapter 67, Encounter with Dobby and the Quest for the Chamber of Secrets. John's expression shifted, a mix of surprise and curiosity. He hadn't anticipated the magical prowess of house elves to be so formidable. Hogwarts was shielded against apparition, making it impossible for wizards to apparate within its grounds. Yet, Dobby had managed to infiltrate the Slytherin common room undetected. "All right, Tom," John interjected, halting Tom's aggressive advance towards Dobby. He turned his attention to the house elf, his tone serious. "What brings you here?" "Dobby has come to seek Master John Wick's help in protecting Harry Potter. The dangers within these walls are too great," Dobby explained, his ears drooping sorrowfully. Dobby tried to prevent Harry Potter from crossing the platform barrier, yet he still found his way to Hogwarts. "You were behind that?" John recalled the incident at the start of the term when Harry was blocked by the magical barrier. His gaze hardened as he confronted Dobby. "Do you realize Harry and Ron nearly faced expulsion because of your actions?" His voice was stern, causing Dobby to avert his gaze in shame. "Dobby is aware, but the castle harbors greater perils," the elf insisted. "Enough with the riddles. Speak plainly about the danger," John demanded, his patience wearing thin. At that moment, Dobby, seemingly overwhelmed by guilt, began to punish himself by banging his head against a nearby cabinet. John, driven by a surge of irritation, instinctively raised his hand, casting a spell to immobilize Dobby without even wielding his wand. "Stop that at once," he commanded, surprised by his own ability to cast spells wandlessly. Reflecting on the incident, John realized the profound connection between emotion and magic. In the wizarding world, emotions could indeed manifest into powerful magical effects. The most notable example was the protective charm cast by Harry's mother, a spell born out of pure love that shielded Harry from Voldemort. Similarly, the unforgivable curses, particularly the killing curse, required a deep-seated intent to harm. John felt his understanding of magic deepen, recognizing the potential of emotions to amplify magical power. Regaining his composure, John addressed Dobby with a softened tone. "I understand your concerns. I'll ensure Harry's safety. Please, refrain from interfering with him further." The thought of Dobby causing more trouble at Hogwarts was the last thing John wanted. "Dobby is grateful for Master John Wick's assistance," Dobby replied, relief evident in his voice. With a snap of his fingers, he vanished, leaving John alone with his thoughts. John's gaze lingered on the spot where Dobby had disappeared, a sense of envy for the elf's apparition ability washing over him. "I must learn that skill soon. I can't keep relying on other means of travel," he mused. The spell for apparition was known to be perilous, requiring careful guidance to avoid disastrous consequences, such as splinching. Considering his options, John quickly dismissed the idea of seeking help from Professor Snape, given their strained relationship. He also ruled out waiting until the 6th year to learn apparition at Hogwarts, unwilling to delay his learning. "Perhaps I can convince Tang Mi to coach me during the holidays," John pondered. As a former Auror, Tang Mi would undoubtedly possess the necessary knowledge and skills. Lost in thought, John's gaze drifted to the Black Lake, its dark waters reflecting the moonlight. "It's a full moon tonight," he remarked to himself, a sense of foreboding accompanying the realization. Meanwhile, in Diagon Alley, a group of 4 wizards completed their transformation under the watchful eye of Mundungus Fletcher. Having ingested Wolfsbane potion, they retained their minds even in their transformed state. Their glowing green eyes surveyed the street, unaware of the turmoil they were about to unleash upon Bogenbach Antique Store, a place oblivious to the formidable adversaries it had attracted. Mr. Bogen, the proprietor, was plotting to eliminate the competition posed by the Johnny Silver Hand Store. To achieve this, he enlisted the services of 6 dark wizards, promising them rich rewards. "Enter and demand they vacate Diagon Alley. You will be handsomely rewarded," he assured the nefarious group, their eyes gleaming with avarice. However, as they prepared to depart, an unexpected explosion shattered the tranquility. The door to Bogen's establishment burst open, and a red spell struck one of the dark wizards, disarming him instantly. Mysterious figures clad in black robes, their faces obscured, entered with swift, decisive movements, casting powerful spells with ease. Mr. Bogen, in a panic, shouted for his hired wizards to retaliate, but their spells were futile against the intruders. One of the assailants, with a mere snap of his fingers, rendered a dark wizard unconscious with a stunning spell. Terrified, Mr. Bogen retreated, demanding, "Who are you?" "You've mistaken your target, Borgin and Burks," one of the attackers replied, his green eyes piercing through the darkness, sending Mr. Bogen scurrying in fear. The intruders, displaying remarkable skill and coordination, quickly subdued all the dark wizards. Tang Mi, one of the attackers, pursued Mr. Bogen effortlessly until he hid in a pitch-dark room, which Downton, another attacker with keen senses, identified as the treasure room. Mr. Bogen, holding his breath in the dark, was spared as the attackers eventually departed, leaving him to spend a harrowing night among his treasures. The next day, Mr. Bogen emerged, thinking the danger had passed. However, he was greeted by several Aurors who proceeded directly to his treasury, which housed a vast collection of illicit magical artifacts. Realization dawned on Mr. Bogen. He was doomed. Unbeknownst to him, he had crossed paths with formidable forces, a mysterious group in black robes and the Aurors. Neither were entities an ordinary person could contend with. Ultimately, Borgin and Burks was shut down after the Aurors discovered numerous dark magical items, including a necklace responsible for the deaths of 19 Muggles. The scandal was immense, and Mr. Bogen faced severe penalties, including a hefty fine and possible imprisonment in Azkaban. The once notorious antique shop was replaced by the Johnny Silver Hand Store. John, reflecting on the events, praised the former Auror's swift actions. Downton and the team had strategically placed the broken wands of the Dark Wizards, known for harming Muggles, at the Ministry of Magic's entrance. With the incriminating evidence and the dark artifacts found, Mr. Bojan's chances of redemption were null. Mundungus Fletcher, acting promptly, acquired the building that housed Borgin and Burke's, a significant investment that was trivial for John, given the success of Dharma Alex's award and the widespread distribution of the Wolfsbane potion. Werewolves worldwide sought the potion, rapidly enhancing Johnny Silverhand's wealth and influence. John also expanded his network, recruiting several competent and trustworthy wizards. A special letter from Rufus Scrimger, the head of the Auror office, caught John's attention. After reading it, John smiled, recognizing Scrimger's astuteness in connecting the dots to Johnny Silverhand. Choosing discretion, John burned the letter, understanding that some alliances are best kept unspoken. He instructed Mundungus to deliver an amulet to Scrimgeour, a gesture of mutual respect and a symbol of their unspoken alliance, potentially enhancing the Auror's combat capabilities. John couldn't ignore the opportunity before him. The day had been draped in a persistent rain, setting a somber mood throughout Hogwarts. As he navigated the corridors, the unmistakable grumble of Filch echoed off the stone walls, a reminder of the ever-watchful eyes in the castle. John caught a glimpse of Harry being reprimanded by Filch, but paid it little mind. His focus was elsewhere. He was on a quest to uncover a secret room rumored to have emerged during his second year at Hogwarts. The only lead he had was a vague reference to a bathroom, but after a thorough search of every bathroom within the school's ancient walls, he found nothing. Disheartened, he was about to abandon his search for the day when he reached the second floor. The familiar sound of Myrtle's sobs reached his ears, emanating from the girl's bathroom. An idea struck him like a bolt of lightning. Perhaps I can seek guidance from the ghost, he mused. The ghosts of Hogwarts had roamed its halls for centuries. If anyone knew of hidden rooms and secret passageways, it would be them. With renewed purpose, John stepped into the girl's bathroom. There, amidst the echoes of dripping faucets, was Myrtle, lost in her usual lamentations. Chapter 68, Whispers and Shadows. John approached Myrtle with a question in mind. Myrtle, I have something I'd like to ask you. Something? Well, as long as it doesn't involve disliking me, Myrtle responded, her voice tinged with her usual sensitivity that John found somewhat challenging to navigate. I'm curious, do you know of any secret chambers within Hogwarts? He inquired, hoping for insight. Myrtle emerged from the toilet, her expression one of confusion. The Chamber of Secrets? I've never come across it, she admitted. Realizing he wouldn't find his answer here, John prepared to leave. However, as he exited, he accidentally collided with someone. I was just looking for Myrtle. I hope you understand, he said, feeling a bit embarrassed about being caught leaving the girl's bathroom. Ginny, who seemed panicked, avoided John's gaze. The black leather book she held slipped from her grasp. Are you all right, Ginny? John asked, noticing her distress. He bent down to help her retrieve the diary, but his gesture only caused Ginny to scream. Don't touch it. Sorry. John withdrew his hand, watching as Ginny quickly picked up the book and hurried away. He couldn't help but wonder, why does Ginny seem so troubled? She appeared significantly more distressed than when they last met, with a haggard look as if she hadn't slept well for days. Perhaps I should consult Luna, John thought, leaving the bathroom. After his departure, Ginny returned, her mind clouded by whispers that left her dazed. Have you ever read it? John overheard a conversation as he was on his way to Filch's office to groom Mrs. Norris. Filch's nervous stammer caught his attention, prompting him to pause. The usually stern caretaker seemed lost for words, and eventually he let Harry leave without any punishment. Strange, John mused, sensing an unusual tension in the air. After Harry left, he noticed Filch hastily concealing a letter. Curious, John knocked and entered the office, greeted by Mrs. Norris's meow. Filch, visibly relieved to see John instead of someone else, didn't object when John offered to brush Mrs. Norris. The cat seemed grateful after John untangled her fur, circling around him in thanks before he sent her on her way. As John walked through the corridor, he detected an odd noise. Sounds like crawling, he murmured, pressing his ear against the wall. The sound, reminiscent of something dragging, soon faded. Looking down, he noticed a group of spiders scurrying away. Why are these spiders leaving in swarms? He pondered, recalling a visit to a spider den with Hagrid in their first year. Deciding to visit Hagrid, John arrived at his cabin only to find Fang but no sign of Hagrid. Fang led him to the back, where a grim scene awaited, a pile of chicken corpses. "Someone killed my chickens. It's too cruel," Hagrid lamented, anger in his voice. The absence of animal bite marks suggested a human was responsible. John felt a growing sense of unease. The fleeing spiders, the slain chickens, all pointed to something amiss. After spending some time with Hagrid, he headed towards the Homping Willow, determined to uncover the source of these disturbances. The Homping Willow was nearly back to its full strength, expected to completely recover within a week. However, its canopy was noticeably thinner, the result of John harvesting branches for his alchemical pursuits. He crafted various amulets and spell rings, which proved instrumental during the assault on Borgin and Berks. Mr. Borgin, misled, attributed the chaos to a werewolf attack, under the common belief that werewolves are incapable of magic post-transformation. While disposing of some waste near the Homping Willow, John encountered Luna Lovegood. Her voice, light and dreamy, carried a hint of concern. "Ginny seems preoccupied with something," she observed, her keen eyes missing nothing. "She hasn't paid much attention to me lately." John agreed, sensing something amiss. "I've noticed that too," he replied, pondering over Ginny's recent behavior, which had also seemed distant to him. Deciding to investigate, he planned to discuss his concerns with Ron, hoping he might shed some light on his sister's unusual demeanor. In potions class, John's proficiency was on full display as he expertly prepared a swelling solution. His precise technique, slicing bat spleens, stirring the concoction counterclockwise 4 times, and applying a gentle heat for 30 seconds, earned him Snape's rare approval and 20 points for Slytherin. After class, John sought out Ron to discuss Ginny. Ron promised to keep an eye on his sister, but the conversation quickly shifted to John's wand, which Ron found remarkable. Amidst their discussion, Harry Potter approached, extending an invitation to Nearly Headless Nick's Death Day party. John, however, declined, citing prior commitments to the Homping Willow. On Halloween night, after tending to the Homping Willow, John's attention was caught by a spider's peculiar path. Recalling Dobby's cryptic warnings of danger, he followed the trail to the second-floor corridor, where he discovered a mysterious puddle of water. Intrigued and slightly apprehensive, he traced the water's source to the girl's bathroom, hesitating momentarily at the threshold due to a previous embarrassing encounter. Inside, he speculated whether the water could be linked to Moaning Myrtle. As he approached the toilets, a sudden movement in the mirror caught his eye. On edge, he drew his wand, ready for confrontation. The bathroom was silent, save for the distant meow of a cat. Recognizing Mrs. Norris's cry, John cautiously exited the bathroom. Outside, he found Mrs. Norris acting strangely, as if she had sensed something amiss. "Be careful, Mrs. Norris," he warned, gently stroking her chin. Together, they explored the corridor, John's unease growing with each step. Suddenly, Mrs. Norris darted towards a corner, lured by the prospect of water, or perhaps something else. A scream shattered the silence. John, reacting instantly, cast a Petrificus Totalis at the lurking shadow, to no effect. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he quickly applied a disillusionment charm to himself and retreated. Peering from his hiding spot, he witnessed Mrs. Norris's body stiffen, a clear sign of petrification. John understood the gravity of what had transpired. Whatever lurked in the shadows was not only dangerous, but capable of petrifying its victims. With Mrs. Norris affected, John knew he had to act swiftly to uncover the truth behind these mysterious events. The object before them was fraught with danger. Gripping the hilt of his Ironwick sword tightly, John prepared to confront the threat with a blend of instinct and skill. With a determined cry, he unleashed his spell, Reducto. A burst of white light surged from his wand, striking the wall with such force that it seemed to tremble under the impact. Chapter 69. The Encounter with the Shadow. In an effort to discern the nature of the shadow he had glimpsed, John utilized the reflective surface of Ironwick's sword. What he saw was a formidable creature, adorned with black scales and a striking scarlet crest atop its head. Its mere presence suggested it could easily devour a troll. John muttered a curse under his breath, puzzled about the creature's origins, when suddenly the shadow turned. Through the sword's reflection, John locked eyes with a pair of large, yellow orbs and felt his body stiffen as if turned to stone. No, it's petrification, he realized in horror. He hadn't anticipated that mere eye contact would ensnare him in such a trap. Although John's magic fought against the petrification, it was barely effective. Damn, he thought, knowing full well that if he were fully petrified, it would be the end of him. In desperation, his eyes morphed into vertical slits, and the spread of petrification across his body slowed. Without a moment's hesitation, he reached into his bag and retrieved several potion bottles. After quickly downing an antidote, which had little effect, he frantically grabbed another. In this critical race against time, before petrification could claim him entirely, John consumed an antidote derived from mandrake. This particular potion, which he had stealthily concocted by pilfering a mandrake from the greenhouse last semester while Professor Sprout was distracted, reversed the petrification. Is it a curse? John pondered, now able to see that the creature's eyes were imbued with a potent curse. Without a second thought, he activated the flame mode. The curse reflected in the blade was incinerated under the fiery magic of the flame sword, and through the blade, John saw the shadowy figure advancing towards him. As it drew near, he closed his eyes and, guided solely by sound, slashed at the shadow with Wick's sword, now imbued with a flame spell. The blade pierced the creature's scales, drawing blood and eliciting a pained growl from the figure. A gust of wind followed, and John rolled away to escape. No, I must dodge, he realized, turning to run in the direction he remembered. The wounded shadow grew increasingly frenzied in its pursuit of John. Activating his flying boots, John kept his back to the shadow and maneuvered to evade it. Through the sword's reflection, he could see the shadow still in pursuit. With the Halloween party nearing its end, John feared the catastrophic consequences if this murderous creature were to invade the school. Determined, he resolved to lead the creature away from the castle. After some distance, he checked the blade once more and noticed the shadow had vanished. Gone? He paused, a sudden realization dawning on him, prompting him to rush back with a sense of urgency. Meanwhile, on the second floor, Harry discovered Mrs. Norris, Filch's detested cat, petrified and suspended from a torch bracket. A chilling message was scrawled in blood on the wall. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Ron, trembling, read the ominous warning aloud. Realizing they should leave before being caught at the scene, they were too late. The Halloween party had ended, and a crowd of young wizards had already gathered. Filch, pushing through the crowd, was met with the sight of his petrified cat, which drove him to a state of horror and despair, eliciting a mix of pity and discomfort from the onlookers. Malfoy, however, found amusement in the chaos. Filch, in his grief, wrongfully accused Harry of harming Mrs. Norris and threatened retribution. Dumbledore arrived promptly, discerning signs of a struggle. Amidst the growing panic and confusion among the students, he knew immediate action was needed to quell the fear. He requested the presence of the first witnesses, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, in his office for questioning. Filch's glare followed them with undisguised loathing, while Lockhart, ever the opportunist, offered to escort Dumbledore to the nearest office. After they departed, John returned to the scene. He gazed at the blood writing on the wall, then surveyed the dispersing crowd. He was certain that during his confrontation with the shadow, these ominous words were absent. This indicated that someone had ventured here after he had drawn the shadow away. Who could it be? John pondered, his mind racing with possibilities. Meanwhile, Gemma Farley, the sixth-year Slytherin prefect, was ushering students back to their dormitories. Gemma, I need to attend to something, John announced abruptly, before heading in the opposite direction without waiting for a response. Gemma, though slightly exasperated, chose not to intervene. John's next stop was the girls' bathroom, the initial location where he encountered the shadow. Upon arrival, he noticed the lingering water stains, prompting him to proceed with caution, using his sword as a makeshift guide. Not here? He muttered to himself after a thorough search of the premises revealed no sign of the shadow. Myrtle was present, but John, pressed for time, opted not to engage with her. Leaving the bathroom, John's expression remained fraught with concern. He recognized the gravity of the situation. It was no longer just about Harry's safety, but the welfare of the entire school. Dumbledore must be informed, he resolved, understanding the significance of involving the revered headmaster in such a critical matter. John made his way to Professor Lockhart's office, where he found the professor boasting about his past exploits as recounted in his autobiography. The claim, reminiscent of a series of attacks in Ouagadougou, was met with skepticism by the other professors present. Dumbledore, assessing the situation, deduced that Mrs. Norris had been petrified, not killed, much to Filch's distress. Dumbledore reassured Filch that it was highly unlikely for a second-year student to be responsible. However, his thoughts inadvertently drifted to John, who, if any second year could be implicated, was the most probable suspect. John's absence from the dinner only compounded Dumbledore's concerns. Filch, adamant in his belief, pointed fingers at Harry and his friends, spurred by an unfortunate misunderstanding involving a correspondence letter. Snape, ever the cynic, dismissed the notion of Harry possessing such advanced magical skills, yet he couldn't ignore the suspicious timing of their appearance. The tension escalated when Snape suggested Harry be removed from the Quidditch team, a proposal that nearly led to a confrontation with Professor McGonagall. Amidst the chaos, John decided against intervening, sensing that his presence might exacerbate the situation. Once the meeting concluded, with Dumbledore assigning Snape the task of concocting a depetrification potion, Harry, Ron, and Hermione sought refuge in an empty classroom to deliberate their next steps. John, having promised Dobby to safeguard Harry, felt compelled to follow. In the secluded classroom, Harry voiced his unease about the mysterious voice only he could hear. Ron, in an attempt to comfort him, advised against sharing this with others, citing the wizarding world's apprehension towards such phenomena. Just then, a voice disrupted their huddle, causing Harry to tense up. "Harry, where did you hear the voice?" The familiar tone prompted Hermione to inquire. "John?" "It's me," John revealed, dispelling the disillusionment spell that had concealed his presence. John materialized seemingly from the shadows, his gaze fixed on Harry. With a tone of urgency, he inquired, "You can hear that voice, right?" "John, did you hear it too?" Harry asked, a sense of alarm creeping into his voice upon detecting the unusual tone in John's question. "I heard it in the corridor on the second floor." "That's correct," John replied, a spark of determination lighting up his eyes. "After the entity left and returned to the second floor, it vanished. It's possible that its base of operations is located there. Upon triggering the quest, a notification appeared. Exploration mission activated. Discover the back chamber of secrets of Slytherin. Reward, Snake Catcher Blessing. Snake Catcher, increased damage against snakes and immunity to snake venom curses." With the quest initiated, John was certain of the origin of the mysterious voice. The challenge now was locating the Chamber of Secrets. Taking a moment to gather his thoughts, he realized he needed assistance. Addressing Harry and his friends with a focused intensity, John shared, "I encountered the creature. It was a massive snake with eyes that bore a deadly gaze." The trio listened in shock. John had come face to face with the perpetrator? "You mean, you know who is behind this?" Harry asked urgently. "No, there's someone else involved besides the snake. This person wrote in blood after I had left the scene. We need to find them," John clarified. In situations like these, the protagonist often proves to be the best ally. Understanding the gravity of the situation, the trio recognized the importance of their mission. The air of the Chamber of Secrets posed a significant threat. John tasked the three friends with uncovering the identity of the chamber's heir, while he decided to seek counsel from Dumbledore. However, upon reaching the door to Dumbledore's office, he encountered an obstacle. He didn't know the password. Chapter 70. Power Supremacy and Drawing Ire. After spending some time in front of the particularly grotesque stone statue, John reluctantly dispelled the illusion spell and addressed the statue. Inform Professor Dumbledore that John Wick seeks an audience with him. The statue seemed to comprehend his words and moved aside after a brief moment. John interpreted this as a sign that Dumbledore was expecting him and proceeded through the rotating passage that led to the headmaster's office. Upon reaching the wooden door adorned with a griffin-shaped brass knocker, it swung open as if by magic, revealing the interior to John for the first time. He entered a spacious, circular room filled with an assortment of peculiar sounds. The room was cluttered with various odd silver instruments that twirled and emitted wisps of smoke. The well-worn sorting hat was perched on a shelf. Next to it, encased in glass, was a silver sword embellished with a large ruby. Behind the door, on another shelf, sat a nearly featherless bird. John had heard the saying that a plucked phoenix was no better than a chicken, and now he saw the truth of it. Dumbledore, his eyes peering over half-moon glasses, regarded John with a measure of seriousness. "John, you do realize it's past curfew," he stated. "I'm aware, Professor Dumbledore," John replied with due respect. "However, I couldn't stand by while Hogwarts faces a threat." Dumbledore's expression grew more solemn at John's words. "I expect a full explanation," he said. "I encountered a massive snake within the school," John disclosed, prompting Dumbledore to look even more concerned. "If what you're telling me holds truth, then Hogwarts is indeed in peril," Dumbledore acknowledged, his tone grave. He promised to instruct the faculty to increase their patrols around the castle. "John, I need your assistance in locating the Chamber of Secrets. The creature that has been unleashed must have originated from there." Dumbledore admitted his ignorance of the chamber's location, a secret that had eluded even him. The philosophy of Salazar Slytherin, which diverged sharply from that of the other founders, left behind a mystery in the form of the chamber. Now, with the safety of the school at stake, Dumbledore sought to mobilize the professors to prevent further incidents, making it easier for John, a student, to conduct his investigation. John had sought Dumbledore's support, and having achieved his objective, he cast a casual glance at the bookshelves on his way out. His eyes caught the title Secrets of Advanced Dark Arts, a book he pondered over its significance to Dumbledore. Upon returning to the Slytherin common room, John walked in on Malfoy's rant about Muggle-born wizards' right to attend Hogwarts. The room fell silent as John entered, and Malfoy, realizing his mistake, broke into a sweat. John, maintaining a stoic expression, made his way through the room as students stepped aside, their eyes downcast in guilt. "Muggles don't deserve to be here. Is that your belief?" John asked calmly. Daphne attempted to interject, but John silenced her with a gesture. "I'm aware that some of you have embraced an extremist pure-blood ideology. However, I'm willing to give you an opportunity to demonstrate this supposed superiority of pure blood," he stated, his tone light yet firm. Some Slytherins looked displeased, but John remained undeterred. His goal was clear: to ensure that no one in Slytherin would dare to undermine him or spread malicious gossip. He stood there, a figure of calm authority, challenging the prejudices that had long festered within the house. John Wick's declaration of war against the entire Slytherin house had the Hogwarts community buzzing with disbelief. Not only did the second-year students find his boldness bordering on insanity, but even the seniors couldn't help but question his sanity. Yet, John seemed unfazed by the skepticism surrounding him. With a determined stride, he walked back to his dormitory, leaving a trail of murmurs in his wake. Daphne Greengrass, visibly infuriated, confronted Draco Malfoy. "John is furious, Malfoy," she exclaimed, pointing directly at his nose. Malfoy, who often prided himself on his pure-blood superiority, was taken aback by the uproar his actions had incited. The news of John Wick's challenge spread rapidly through Hogwarts, igniting a mixture of shock and curiosity among the students. The consensus across the four houses was unanimous: John must be out of his mind. The following day, Harry Potter, upon hearing the news, quickly sought out Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. "Is John crazy? He's taking on the whole of Slytherin by himself," Ron exclaimed in disbelief. Hermione, ever the supportive friend, insisted, "We have to help him." Her determination was contagious, and soon the trio made their way to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, which was already teeming with students. The Weasley twins, spotting an opportunity, began taking bets on the outcome of the duel, offering staggering odds of 1/100 against John. Harry, puzzled, questioned their confidence. "Aren't you afraid that John will lose?" George Weasley simply winked and replied, "He's John Wick. He killed a troll in his first year and defeated Professor Quirrell." Despite the daunting odds, the twins remained unfazed, their faith in John unwavering. The classroom was transformed for the occasion, with an elongated platform set up for the duel. Gilderoy Lockhart, ever the opportunist, eyed the setup with interest, while Professor Flitwick, a dueling champion, was appointed as the referee. Percy Weasley, along with other prefects, worked diligently to maintain order among the excited crowd. John Wick, clad in a loose wizarding robe adorned with a delicate badge, stood confidently on the platform. His presence alone seemed to command attention, drawing all eyes to him. With a graceful gesture, he addressed the gathered crowd, his voice resonant and clear. "It's an honor to stand before you in this arena, a place of both comedy and sadness. The wizarding world has seen many Muggle-born wizards prove their worth, yet some still cling to their baseless prejudices," John began, his tone both calm and commanding. "Today, we challenge those prejudices. Strength, not bloodline, defines us." As he concluded his speech, a fifth-year Slytherin, Eddie Garfield, stepped forward to accept the challenge. "Ready?" John asked, his demeanor unchanging. A swift flick of his wand sent Garfield flying, the duel ending almost as soon as it had begun. "Next," John called out, his voice steady. One by one, Slytherins rose to challenge him, but none could match his skill. John's prowess was undeniable, leaving even Professor Flitwick in awe of his dueling genius. The message was clear. True strength lies not in one's heritage, but in their abilities and character. With his level 4 magic power and mastery of the level 4 shattering spell, John stood unmovable. By the time he was finished, more than 20 members of Slytherin lay defeated around him. Sensing the moment was right, he amplified his voice with a spell. "I'm aware of the rumors circulating the school about the Chamber of Secrets being open to purge Muggle-born wizards. Let me make it clear here and now. That plan is doomed to fail." John's gaze swept across the gathered students, searching for any sign of the heir amidst the mix of surprise, admiration, and fear on their faces. "The reason is simple. I am here, and as long as I am, the heir's efforts will be in vain." With these words, John threw down the gauntlet to the would-be attacker of Muggleborns. "The greatest challenge to Muggle-born wizards stands before you. Make your move, and I will trace it back to you." His declaration bolstered the spirits of the students, who had been on edge, and they erupted in cheers for John. Among the crowd, a look of panic flashed across Ginny's pale face. The younger students, inspired by John's defiance, were eager to uncover and confront the heir themselves. Remember, it's not the purity of one's blood that defines their worth, but the strength of their character and abilities. John's words resonated, and those who had harbored doubts or objections found themselves unable to meet his gaze, bowing their heads in submission. Stepping down from the platform, John had decisively quelled the unrest in Slytherin, leaving a lasting impression on all who witnessed his stand. Chapter 71. Brewing the Elixir of Felicity and Malfoy's Apology. In the wake of the pureblood supremacy theory, another ideology gained traction within Slytherin, the belief that power is paramount. Slytherin was undergoing a transformation, and John Wick's influence was akin to a drop of ink dispersing through clear water, irrevocably altering its purity. Dumbledore, observing these changes, mused to himself about the risks John was taking. "Do you really want to draw the heir's attention, John? This is exceedingly dangerous." He understood that John's actions, which seemingly trampled on pure-blood ideologies to elevate himself, could provoke the heir of Slytherin. If the heir remained passive, it would render the threat of the Chamber of Secrets laughable. Conversely, if the heir reacted against someone other than John, it would imply fear of John, thereby quelling the school's growing panic. John had not only established his prestige, but had also begun to instill his own beliefs among the students. Dumbledore sighed. "Ambitious, John. I just hope your intentions are not dark." He couldn't help but see similarities between John and another person from the past. Despite his apparent defiance in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, John was diligently working on brewing the Elixir of Felicity. The complexity of the potion required his utmost attention. For John, the Felix Felicis was not just an experiment, it was a lifeline. Acquiring the ingredients had been costly, but with his store, Johnny Silverhands, thriving, financial constraints were not an issue. The challenge lay in the scarcity of the ingredients, which made self-brewing a necessity. "I just hope that snake stays hidden while I finish this," John thought, referring to the creature from the Chamber of Secrets. During the brewing process, John continued to hone his magical abilities. Instead of the usual forward-pointing wand gesture, he aimed his wand at the ground and whispered, "Induction." Closing his eyes, he felt his wand emit sonar-like waves, mapping his surroundings through magical feedback. Although the resulting image was basic, it thrilled John. "It's still in its early stages, but the super sensation charm is effective," he noted with satisfaction. This spell, a product of his own invention, was designed to enhance sensory perception through dispersed magical energy. John had named it the Sense Charm, a tool that allowed him to detect movements without relying on sight. "As long as it doesn't have those deadly eyes, it's merely a defanged tiger," he mused, referencing the basilisk. John's prowess was not limited to potion-making and spell invention. His influence was palpable in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, where even Professor Lockhart seemed superfluous. Under John's guidance, the gaps in the students' knowledge were swiftly bridged. Harry Potter, impressed by John's teaching, remarked, "It would be great if John were the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor." Ron Weasley agreed silently, but Hermione Granger appeared disheartened. Sensing her distress, Harry offered comfort. "What's wrong, Hermione? Don't worry, with John here, the heir of Slytherin wouldn't dare target you." They were referring to the legend of the Chamber of Secrets, which, according to history, was open to purge Hogwarts of those unworthy of wizardry. John's recent actions had mitigated much of the students' fear. Hermione, however, shook her head. "It's not that. It's just that John is so intelligent, and next to him, I feel utterly foolish." Ron, ever dramatic, exclaimed, "Blimey, Hermione, if you're a fool, what does that make Harry and me?" His words echoed the sentiment that, in the light of John's brilliance, they all felt overshadowed, yet it was this very brilliance that offered them protection and knowledge in uncertain times. Hermione Granger, often hailed as the brightest witch of her age, harbored a secret that only she knew. Her intelligence was not innate, but the result of relentless hard work. She committed everything to memory through sheer force of will, dedicating 3 to 10 times more effort than her peers. Yet, despite her diligence, she found herself lagging behind John, who had already achieved the level of proficiency to assist professors. This realization shattered the fragile self-confidence she had painstakingly built, leaving her disheartened. In an attempt to lift Hermione's spirits, Harry, Ron, and she ventured to the corridor where Mrs. Norris had been petrified. There, they encountered a cluster of spiders, which, to Hermione's amusement, sent Ron into a state of terror. This moment of levity, watching Ron's fear of spiders, brought a rare giggle from Hermione, momentarily lightening her mood. Their investigation into the petrification incidents led them to suspect the involvement of purebloods, with Draco Malfoy as their prime suspect. Their quest for answers took them to the girls' bathroom, where they sought the insight of Moaning Myrtle. "We just want to ask if you've seen anything unusual lately," Hermione inquired, mentioning the attack on the cat outside Myrtle's door on Halloween. Harry pressed further, asking if Myrtle had noticed anyone suspicious that night. Myrtle recounted being teased by Peeves and mentioned seeing John, who had claimed to have encountered a large snake in the corridor. Despite this lead, they were unable to glean any useful information. Hermione proposed a plan to brew a complex potion, a task that would require considerable time and Harry's assistance. Harry, initially unsure of how he could be of help, found himself reluctantly seeking an autograph from Professor Lockhart for the plan, a task he found more daunting than facing a troll. The trio debated whether to inform John about their suspicions and plans. "Should we tell John?" Hermione pondered, aware of John's connections to Slytherin and Malfoy. Ron, dismissive of Malfoy's allegiance, reminded them of Malfoy's disdainful remarks about Muggle-born wizards and his confrontation with John. Encouraged by Ron's words, they resolved to proceed with their potion brewing without involving John. Meanwhile, John sought the assistance of the Bloody Baron, the most formidable ghost at Hogwarts, to enlist the castle's ghosts in gathering information. The Baron, recognizing John's courage and strength, agreed to help. John, also armed with the Marauder's map, kept a vigilant watch over the castle's inhabitants, determined to uncover the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets. John's physical and magical prowess had grown significantly, evident as he exercised in his room. His dedication to improving himself was interrupted by a knock at the door, revealing a guilt-ridden and fearful Malfoy. Malfoy's apology was heartfelt, driven by his fear of losing John's friendship. Unlike his other acquaintances who were drawn to his wealth and family name, John valued Malfoy for who he was, not his status. This realization compelled Malfoy to seek forgiveness, fearing the consequences of his actions and the potential loss of his only true friend. Malfoy extended an apology, to which John nodded and responded, "I accept your apology." "You accepted?" Malfoy was visibly stunned, prompting John to give him a puzzled look. "I've accepted your apology. Is there something wrong with that?" "No, it's just... You're not angry?" Malfoy asked, his confusion evident. John chuckled lightly before replying, "Draco, what exactly are you expecting? Do you want me to cast a curse on you as a form of retaliation?" Malfoy visibly shuddered at the thought, and quickly said, "That won't be necessary." "Strength should always come first, Draco. You must understand that neither pure blood status nor a renowned family name equates to personal strength." "I hope you'll remember this lesson," John said earnestly, his tone conveying the importance of his message. He didn't want Malfoy to be swayed by the allure of the Death Eaters. "Remember my words, for they are the path to eternal glory." "For eternal glory," Malfoy echoed, a sigh of relief escaping him. In that moment, he realized the folly of his previous ways. The two of them let go of their past grievances, paving the way for a renewed friendship. Chapter 72: The Crazy Bludger and Malfoy's Transformation. It was Saturday, and John had been invited to witness a Quidditch match. Malfoy had boldly declared his intention to leave Harry Potter trailing in his wake, mockingly referring to him as Scarhead. John, observing Malfoy's swagger, couldn't help but think if Harry was Scarhead, then surely Malfoy was Oilyhead. For the time being, Goyle and Crabbe had been reassigned to act as John's bodyguards, leading the way to the Quidditch pitch. As they made their way through the crowd, John noticed the Slytherin students parting to make way for him, much like courtiers would for a newly crowned king. This display of respect did not go unnoticed by Hermione and the others. Seated in the Slytherin section, Daphne Greengrass took the seat next to John, her admiration evident. "John, you truly look like a king," she remarked, her eyes sparkling with a mix of admiration and ambition. "Power does come first, doesn't it? Your badge is magnificent. I always knew you were destined for greatness." She inquired about when she might receive a badge of her own, to which John replied with a knowing chuckle, "There will be a chance for eternal glory." Daphne echoed his sentiment, her determination clear. The match commenced with Madame Hooch's whistle, and the players soared into the gray sky. Harry, as the Seeker, flew higher than the rest, his eyes scanning the field. Malfoy, eager to flaunt his new Nimbus 2001, taunted Harry, calling him Scarhead. Harry, focused on the game, ignored Malfoy's jibes. Suddenly, a rogue bludger targeted Harry, narrowly missing him. George Weasley intervened, batting the bludger away, but it seemed hell-bent on pursuing Harry, reminiscent of a previous year's incident where Harry had lost control of his broom. The game grew tense as the bludger relentlessly chased Harry, despite the Weasley twins' efforts to protect him. Rain began to pour, further complicating the match. The commentator, Lee Jordan, announced Slytherin's lead, highlighting the advantage the Nimbus 2001 brooms gave them. With the rogue bludger in play, Harry struggled to search for the snitch, his vision obscured by the rain. Realizing the bludger had been tampered with, Oliver Wood called for a timeout, a move that elicited laughter from the Slytherin spectators. The Gryffindor team was at a disadvantage, both in equipment and now with the sabotaged bludger. Despite the limited timeouts, Harry resolved to confront the bludger himself, allowing his teammates to focus on scoring. As the match resumed, the rain intensified. Harry, back in the air, was immediately targeted by the bludger. Determined to outmaneuver it, he couldn't help but wonder if Malfoy was behind the bludger's erratic behavior. The match had taken a dangerous turn, and Harry knew he had to act swiftly to ensure not only his safety, but also the success of his team. Harry suspected Malfoy had enchanted the bludger, but the idea seemed far-fetched. As he maneuvered in the sky, dodging the relentless bludger, Malfoy's taunts echoed around him. The bludger seemed to have a vendetta against him, relentlessly pursuing him as if it intended to knock him out of the sky. With his team on the brink of defeat, Harry's frustration mounted, mirrored by Hermione and Ron's anxious expressions in the stands. "Let me take it down," Ron proposed, eager to intervene, but Hermione halted him. She pointed out the impracticality of his plan, not only because of the distance, but also doubting his ability to neutralize the enchanted bludger. In a daring move, Harry dived to evade the bludger, heading straight for the Slytherin section. The Slytherin students recoiled in horror. Amidst the chaos, Harry heard a familiar voice. "Harry, this way!" It was John, calling out from the Slytherin stands. Despite his initial hesitation, Harry steered towards him, determined. As Harry approached, Goyle panicked and fled, but Daphne noticed John's resolve. John, fixated on the bludger, realized it was cursed. He wondered if the heir of Slytherin was behind this, questioning why the bludger targeted Harry and not him. Nonetheless, he prepared to act. As the bludger neared, John, with remarkable precision, caught it with his bare hands, momentarily staggered by the force. With the bludger in his grasp, he quickly cast a spell, Fubut Upcabtaten, neutralizing its enchantment. The bludger, now harmless, drifted away. "You caught the bludger with your bare hands?" Daphne was astounded, having never witnessed such a feat. John nonchalantly replied, "This is the second time," revealing his previous encounter with a similar situation. His physical strength had evidently improved, allowing him to emerge unscathed from the ordeal, much to the astonishment of the Slytherin onlookers. In the Gryffindor stands, Hermione cheered, "I knew John would help." Ron, equally impressed, questioned John's human limits. Meanwhile, Malfoy mocked Harry's evasive maneuvers. However, Harry's frustration turned to opportunity when he spotted the golden snitch behind Malfoy. Seizing the moment, Harry stealthily approached, but Malfoy soon noticed the snitch as well. The chase was on. The two rivals clashed in the air, their pursuit of the snitch leading to a series of collisions. In a dramatic finale, as the snitch descended, Malfoy hesitated, allowing Harry to catch the snitch, but at the cost of a harsh fall, rendering him unconscious. Lee Jordan jubilantly announced Gryffindor's victory as Harry regained consciousness, only to find Lockhart rushing to his aid. Harry's attempts to refuse Lockhart's help were futile. The healing spell was cast, necessitating a week's stay in the school hospital, a situation that could have been avoided, as John remarked. In the aftermath, John observed Malfoy's confrontation with Marcus Flint, who expressed his disappointment over the snitch's escape. Malfoy's frustration was palpable, but he found solace in John's earlier words about the importance of personal strength, acknowledging the value of self-reliance over material advantages. Chapter 73, The Star Club and the Sewer. "What should I do, John?" Malfoy asked, his voice tinged with confusion, a stark departure from the teachings he had received at home. He stood in the corridor, noticeably without the presence of Goyle and Crabbe. "As I've already told you," John replied lightly. Malfoy looked up, noticing the badge on John's chest glowing softly. "Do you mean I should join you?" he inquired. "No," John responded, shaking his head calmly. "You're not ready yet, Draco. Strive to become stronger, to earn my respect." Malfoy hadn't anticipated such an immediate rejection. In the past, he might have reacted with anger, but now it only fueled his determination to improve. John patted him on the shoulder, offering a smile. "The only reason Harry surpasses you is his unwavering determination. I understand. When I've achieved that, I hope you'll personally bestow the badge upon me," Malfoy said, nodding with newfound resolve. John smiled, gently touching the badge on his chest. "I call it the Star Club, and one day you'll be among its members," he said, his voice carrying a promise. The Star Club, much like Dumbledore's Order of the Phoenix, was a gathering of individuals John deemed talented and worthy. Malfoy wasn't there yet, but it seemed only a matter of time. Feeling his heart race with excitement, Malfoy attempted to mimic John's bow, a gesture of respect and aspiration. In the school hospital, John was visiting Harry, who had been injured by a rogue bludger during a Quidditch match. He suspected there was more to the incident than met the eye. "John," Hermione greeted him as he approached. "Thanks to you, Harry's still alive." That bludger could have been fatal. John waved off the gratitude. I was merely helping a friend. It wasn't as dire as all that. Approaching Harry's bedside, John asked, "How are you feeling?" "Terrible, especially the taste," Harry grimaced, referring to the bone spirit potion he had been forced to drink for his recovery. The potion, a concoction dating back to one of Harry's ancestors, was known for its unpleasant taste and the pain it induced during the bone regrowth process. John, trying to lighten the mood, mentioned the potion's connection to Harry's family, which only made Harry more skeptical of his lineage. Turning the conversation to more serious matters, John voiced his concerns about the bludger attack, possibly being linked to the heir of Slytherin. "It's not good news," he murmured. Ron immediately blamed Malfoy, but John dismissed the accusation, knowing Malfoy lacked the skill to curse the bludger and had been under his watchful eye. Despite their suspicions, the trio agreed to focus on gathering evidence, particularly through the creation of a polyjuice potion. After leaving a badge under Harry's pillow, John departed, leaving the trio to ponder the true identity of the heir and the dangers that lay ahead. That night, back in the dormitory, John found Tom engrossed in monitoring the Marauders' map, a task John had assigned to him. Their goal was to keep an eye out for anyone heading towards the girls' bathroom, a location of interest in their investigation. Tom, more focused than ever, suddenly alerted John. "Someone's appeared," he exclaimed. John leapt up, ready to investigate, his determination to uncover the truth unwavering. John consulted the Marauders' map, his eyes scanning the intricate layout until they landed on the label for the girls' bathrooms. The name Ginny caught his attention, freezing him in place. The notion that a member of the staunchly Gryffindor Weasley family could be involved with the Chamber of Secrets was baffling. It was as if Gryffindor itself had unearthed a Slytherin heir, though, in a twist of fate, Gryffindor had indeed found one before. John's brow furrowed in concern. Ginny Weasley's involvement complicated matters. The Weasleys were known for their unwavering defiance against Voldemort, making this discovery all the more perplexing. Determined to unravel this mystery, John cast a disillusionment charm on himself and ventured out. He moved swiftly through the corridors, his eyes never leaving the Marauders' map as he tracked Ginny's movements until she vanished, indicating her entry into the Chamber of Secrets. "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened," he muttered to himself, quickening his pace towards the bathroom. Upon arrival, he found the bathroom deserted. "Has she already entered?" he wondered aloud, refusing to leave any stone unturned. He meticulously examined the room, his attention eventually drawn to a faucet marked with a serpent, the emblem of Slytherin. Could this be it? He pondered, stepping back to cast the unlocking charm. "Alohomora!" he exclaimed, but the faucet remained unresponsive. After several attempts, John realized the spell required was beyond his current knowledge. Concerns about Ginny's whereabouts, the potential emergence of the basilisk, and the safety of the students clouded his mind. Choosing to wait near the bathroom rather than inside, John feared the sudden appearance of the basilisk could prove fatal. During his vigil, he researched the basilisk, discovering it was a magical beast bred by Herpo the Foul, a dark wizard of ancient times. If this basilisk was the same creature, it could be nearly 1,000 years old, a testament to its deadly legacy. John also kept a close watch on Harry Potter, puzzled by the attacks on him if Ginny was indeed the heir. The badge he had given Harry would alert him to any magical disturbances, a precaution that soon proved its worth. When Dobby's name appeared on the Marauders' map, John was momentarily distracted until Ginny's name re-emerged, signaling her exit from the chamber. Reapplying the disillusionment charm, John approached the bathroom once more, the sound of slithering echoing in the corridor. Hesitant to use any spells that might inadvertently harm Ginny, he opted for a subtler approach. Closing his eyes, he tapped his wand on the ground, sending out a wave of magic that allowed him to see the situation within. Ginny stood by the faucet, uttering strange sounds as a hidden passage revealed itself, leading to a vast space below. Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets, John realized, just as Ginny exited and the passage began to close. Sensing the basilisk's departure, he seized the moment to follow her into the chamber, using his disillusionment charm for cover. As he descended, his night vision allowed him to survey the area below. Upon landing, he activated his flying boots to cushion his fall, sending out a burst of magic that illuminated a passage stretching out into the darkness. Could this be connected to the sewer system? John wondered, his mind racing with the implications of his discovery and the urgent need to protect the students of Hogwarts from the lurking danger within. John felt the ground tremble beneath his feet, a sure sign that the basilisk was on the move. He stood at a crossroads of sorts, with one path possibly leading to the Slytherin chamber and the other in the direction of the basilisk. After a moment of indecision, he chose to pursue the basilisk, understanding the gravity of the situation and the potential danger it posed. As he ventured further, John finally caught sight of the basilisk. "You didn't come looking for me. You really haven't been paying attention," he muttered under his breath, half-jokingly. He wondered if Ginny's concerns about her relationship with her brother and Harry had distracted him from the more immediate threat. The basilisk slithered into a pipe, and without a second thought, John followed. He saw an opportunity when the basilisk turned away from him. Without hesitation, he extended his hand and cast a powerful spell, Bones in Pieces, Reducto. His level 4 mana, combined with a level 4 shattering spell, unleashed a force powerful enough to rival that of an auror. The spell struck the basilisk's scales, causing some of the magic to ricochet and blast a large hole in the wall. John braced himself, wand in his left hand and sword in his right, sensing that something was amiss with the basilisk. As it turned to face him, he noticed with a shock that one of its eyes was missing, likely a result of the spell he had just cast. The sight of John seemed to enrage the basilisk further, and it charged at him with a ferocious roar. John's quick decision to follow the basilisk had led him to this perilous moment. With the creature now bearing down on him, missing an eye, but no less deadly, he knew he had to rely on his wits and magical prowess to survive this encounter. The tension in the air was palpable as John prepared to face the basilisk's wrath head-on. Chapter 74, Parseltongue and Dragon's Fury. John's previous encounter with the basilisk had left one of its eyes injured. With his eyes firmly shut to avoid the creature's deadly gaze, John rhythmically pounded the ground with his wand, summoning his strength. As the basilisk approached, he activated his flying boots, soaring into the air to evade the beast. With a swift motion, he directed a burst of white light from his wand onto the basilisk's body. "I am a fire dragon," he declared, as his sword burst into raging flames. John slashed through the air, his blade slicing across the basilisk's scales and embedding itself into the creature's flesh. The basilisk writhed in agony, rolling over and causing John to be thrown off balance. He couldn't steady himself. Aiming his wand at the basilisk's wound, John launched a relentless assault. "Bones to pieces, Reducto," he chanted, casting the spell thrice. Each incantation sent streaks of white light crashing into the basilisk, causing scales to fly off from its wound. In its pain, the basilisk slammed into the sewer walls, sending John crashing into them as well. The impact drove the blade deeper into the creature, leaving John no choice but to release it. Perhaps due to its advanced age, the basilisk's senses, aside from its sight, had dulled. John attempted to use a transfiguration spell to turn the surrounding debris into sharp spikes, but the basilisk's scales were too tough, effortlessly crushing them to clear a path. Trying to escape, John noticed the basilisk's aggression waning and realized it sought to flee the hostile environment. The cramped sewer limited the basilisk's movements, making it clumsy and vulnerable. As the basilisk opened its mouth to spit a stream of venom, John quickly cast the iron armor curse to shield himself, only to find the curse corroding under the venom's potency. "So fierce," John muttered, narrowly dodging the deadly spray. Seizing the moment, John cast another spell. "Flaming! Incendio!" Flames erupted from his wand, forming a fiery cloud. With a flick of his wand, John directed the inferno towards the basilisk. The creature screeched in pain, turning tail and fleeing deeper into the sewer. John stretched out his hand, reigniting the sword of iron wick that had been embedded in the basilisk. The flames engulfed the creature, causing it unbearable pain. In its frenzy, the basilisk lashed out with its tail, striking John and shattering 2 protective amulets he wore. "Hiss!" almost died. John gasped, feeling as if his internal organs had been compressed. Without the amulets, he might not have survived. With the basilisk fleeing with the sword of Iron Wick still embedded in it, John took a moment to catch his breath. He retrieved an enhancement potion from his bag and drank it in one gulp. Once recovered, he pursued the basilisk, guided by his connection to the sword of Iron Wick. "Colin, are you coming?" asked Sylvia Bradley, a compassionate and friendly Gryffindor girl from a Muggle family, and Colin Creevy's good friend. "Of course, I want to see Harry Potter," Colin replied, his camera in hand. He had grapes and other fruits for Harry, having witnessed an exciting Quidditch game earlier that day. Sylvia had been hesitant to visit due to the terrifying rumors about the Chamber of Secrets and the potential purge of Muggle-born wizards, which had left her sleepless with fear. However, John Wick's bold stand against the heir of Slytherin had reassured her. As they walked towards the school hospital, Colin recorded their journey to Hogwarts. Suddenly, a noisy sound echoed from a pipeline nearby, startling Sylvia. Terror gripped them as they heard an ominous sound. "What's that sound?" Sylvia asked, her voice trembling with fear. "I don't know," Colin replied, equally scared. He picked up his camera, aiming to capture whatever was causing the disturbance. Suddenly, a massive head emerged from a pipe connected to the wall. Instinctively, Colin pressed the shutter button. The basilisk, its scales cracked and turned from emerald green to a dark, smoky black, its eyes irritated and barely open, charged towards the sound of the shutter. Colin and Sylvia screamed, their hearts pounding with the fear of impending doom. "Impedimento!" a voice shouted, and the basilisk's advance slowed. John emerged from the shadows, his eyes transformed into vertical slits, a sword ablaze in his hand. "I am a fire dragon," he declared, as the sword named Iron Wick ignited with flames, causing the basilisk to roar in agony. Seizing the moment, John cast a levitation charm on Colin and Sylvia, pushing them to safety. He then turned his attention back to the basilisk, which was about to open its eyes. With a swift movement, he cast another spell, striking the beast on the head with a burst of white light, forcing it to avert its gaze. "Run! Call for a professor!" John commanded the two young Gryffindors. The sheer size of the basilisk, towering at 50 feet, was enough to paralyze anyone with fear. John's command snapped them out of their trance, but his intervention came at a cost. The basilisk struck him, sending him nearly flying. Gritting his teeth against the pain, John countered with a crushing spell. The battle raged on, with John's magical energy dwindling. "Vera Verto!" he exclaimed, transforming a nearby torch into a rope that he then wrapped around the basilisk. Activating his flying boots, he leaped onto the beast's back, gripping the sword's hilt tightly. "I am a fire dragon," he roared, the flames intensifying, scorching the scales as he slowly extracted the sword. Blood splattered over him, causing a stinging sensation on his skin. Just as John was about to deliver the final blow, a peculiar sound halted the basilisk's frenzy. It turned towards the pipe, seemingly regaining its composure. John prepared to continue his attack, but a spell struck him with a blinding white light. "Your uncles," he cursed, feeling the amulet's protection fade as he was thrown back, pain searing through his back. He saw a figure disappear into the pipe with the basilisk. Powerless to pursue, John cursed the cowardice of his unseen assailant. The commotion quickly drew the attention of the professors, alerted by Colin and Sylvia. As John struggled to his feet, he was met by an unexpected sight. John, are you okay?" Gilderoy Lockhart asked, a curler still in his hair. John's response was terse. "I can't die," he snapped, frustration evident in his voice. He knew that if any other professor had arrived, he might have pursued the basilisk into the sewer. However, with Lockhart's arrival, he felt all hope was lost. Lockhart, sensing John's hostility, offered a sarcastic smile. "What happened here?" he inquired, just as other professors began to arrive. The sight of the devastated corridor shocked them, especially Professor McGonagall, whose eyes widened in disbelief. John, feeling overwhelmed and in pain, sarcastically pushed Lockhart forward as if to say, "You deal with it." He just wanted to rest, his back aching from the curse and feeling as if it were about to break. Lockhart, seizing the moment, began to fabricate a tale of his heroic encounter with the monster. The professors, however, turned their attention to John, noticing his pale and distressed appearance. "John Wick, what's the matter with you?" Professor McGonagall asked, concern evident in her voice. Professor Snape, noticing the blood on John's clothes and the signs of poison, stepped forward with a frown. "There is poison," he began, his voice laced with urgency as he prepared to administer aid. The sentence about the incident sent shivers down everyone's spine. Thankfully, the school infirmary was close by, and the injured were quickly transported there. Harry, aware that Dobby was behind the rogue bludger, was seething with anger and harbored a strong desire to confront Dobby. With the knowledge that the Chamber of Secrets had been opened, Harry was eager to inquire more. However, he was interrupted by noises from outside. In an instant, Dobby disappeared through apparition. Harry, actin, jaw swiftly, lay back down on his bed and feigned sleep. Peeking through barely opened eyes, he watched the door as several figures entered the room. The first to enter was Snape, who appeared to be supporting someone. Following him were Professors McGonagall and Sprout. Professor Flitwick, being quite short, was almost missed by Harry's gaze. Then, to Harry's surprise, Dumbledore entered as well. The group congregated around the hospital bed. Dumbledore, with a grave expression that softened upon seeing the patients, expressed his relief. "Thank God, you managed to save the two young wizards." It was revealed that it was thanks to John's quick thinking and Dumbledore's subsequent instruction to increase patrols that the professors arrived in time. Colin, having encountered the basilisk, had frantically sought out the professors for help. Dumbledore acknowledged that without John's intervention, the outcome for the two young wizards could have been fatal. Madame Pomfrey rushed in, her scream cutting through the air as she feared the worst for John, who looked to be on death's door. However, after a thorough examination, she determined that the most severe injury was from a blasting curse. Remarkably, John's robust constitution meant he could recover after just a night's rest. The curse had introduced poison into his bloodstream, but fortunately, John's resilience to toxins suggested the worst he might suffer would be a bout of diarrhea. The professors collectively exhaled in relief, their immediate concerns alleviated. Dumbledore hinted at having more to discuss, but decided it could wait until the following day. Once the professors had departed, Harry cautiously approached John's bedside. Harry was momentarily taken aback by John's first request. "Harry, could you fetch me a taffy from your stash?" John asked, his stomach audibly rumbling in hunger, having not had the chance to eat amidst the chaos. Chapter 75, Heirs and Protectors. The next day, the halls of Hogwarts buzzed with excitement and disbelief. "Have you heard?" one student whispered to another, eyes wide with awe. "John Wick, he's real, and he's our protector." Indeed, the news had spread like wildfire. Colin Creevy's photograph, capturing the moment John Wick confronted the basilisk, was the talk of the school. The image was so perfectly timed it seemed staged, with John's hair dramatically swept across his face as he cast his spell. Harry Potter, freshly discharged from the hospital, reunited with Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley in the girls' bathroom, where they had been brewing a complex potion. Ron, barely containing his excitement, waved Colin's photo in front of Harry. "Is it true?" he asked, eager for confirmation. Harry felt a twinge of embarrassment. At the crucial moment, he had been preoccupied, talking to Dobby, and had missed the action. However, he had seen John being escorted to the hospital wing. Hermione, ever concerned, immediately inquired about John's condition. "He's fine," Harry replied, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Just hungry, apparently." This response left Ron baffled, while Hermione let out a sigh of relief. The conversation quickly turned back to their potion-making endeavor. Initially, their goal had been to extract information from Draco Malfoy, but John's heroic act seemed to render their plan unnecessary. Yet, Harry remained adamant. Recalling Malfoy's earlier slander against Muggle-born wizards and his subsequent vendetta, Harry suggested that Malfoy might have had a more sinister motive. Maybe Malfoy wanted to kill John, he proposed, considering Malfoy's capacity for revenge. Determined to protect their friend, they decided to continue with their plan, but realized they were missing some crucial ingredients. Hermione suggested seeking assistance from Professor Snape, who, as a potions master, would undoubtedly have what they needed. On Monday, John was officially discharged from the hospital. Madame Pomfrey couldn't help but give him an odd look, noting his unusual appetite during his stay. John, puzzled by his improved appetite despite the poisoning, decided not to dwell on it. As he walked through the school, he was met with admiring glances. At the bulletin board, he saw Colin's photograph and couldn't help but admire the skill behind the shot. Colin really should consider a career in photography, he mused, appreciating his own photogenic qualities in the image. The Weasley twins, Fred and George, had somehow acquired a collection of John's personal items and were now selling them as protective charms against the heirs. John was taken aback upon discovering they were selling his socks. "Wait, why do you have my socks?" he exclaimed, incredulous. George assured him, "Of course they're yours. We never sell fakes." Fred sheepishly admitted they had paid someone to gain access to John's belongings. John, unamused by their antics, proposed a deal. 50-50, he suggested, threatening to expose their scheme as fraudulent if they refused. The twins, realizing the popularity of the items and fearing the backlash of being labeled as frauds, reluctantly agreed. "Take it, you Slytherin," George grumbled, acknowledging their defeat. John, satisfied with the arrangement, wondered what else the twins might have of his to sell. John had just purchased a brand new set of pencils, which could be bought individually. Despite having the means to afford them, John believed that money should never be a source of trouble for anyone. It was during this time that he encountered Neville, who was still wearing John's scarf. This sight rendered John momentarily speechless. "Why are you wearing my scarf?" he inquired. Neville, looking visibly embarrassed, scratched his head. His discomfort was palpable, akin to being caught wearing someone else's clothes. John was about to remind Neville not to judge people by their appearances when he learned that Neville had acquired the scarf as an amulet from the twins. This revelation eased John's concerns, though he couldn't help but question Neville's choice. "Don't you have the sword I personally crafted for you? What use do you have for a scarf?" John asked, his tone laced with incredulity. After some contemplation, Neville realized the sword indeed held more practical value than the scarf. John, wanting to ensure Neville's safety, arranged a strengthening package for him. However, John found little peace in his classes, as students from other houses often crowded in, seeking a sense of security. During a defense against the dark arts class, John noticed Professor Lockhart seemingly designing a stage on paper, which struck him as odd. Once the class concluded, John sought out Percy, hoping he could convince him to take Ginny to the Humping Willow. Percy, protective of his sister, was initially wary of John's intentions. "Don't you have feelings for Ginny?" he asked, suspicion evident in his voice. John was taken aback by the accusation. "What are you thinking? Ginny is just a little brat to me," he responded, trying to clear the misunderstanding. After several assurances, Percy reluctantly agreed to John's request, recognizing the importance of their cooperative relationship and trusting John not to harm Ginny. John had chosen Percy for this task, deeming him more reliable than Ron or the Weasley twins, who were likely to cause trouble or eavesdrop. Despite having confirmed Ginny as the heir who opened the Chamber of Secrets, John chose not to expose her immediately. He was puzzled by how someone from the Weasley family could possess such knowledge and use advanced spells like the Crushing Curse, especially at such a young age. Later that afternoon, John arrived at the Humping Willow, which had fully recovered from its previous state. As he waited, he experimented with enhancing the flame of his iron Wick sword by reciting a spell in dragon language, which transformed the flame into the shape of a fire dragon. This experiment led him to believe that the dragon's blood used in the enchantment played a significant role in this effect. When Ginny and Percy finally arrived, Ginny appeared visibly tense, and Percy had to reassure her. Upon seeing John, Ginny's fear was evident, confirming to John that her actions were not of her own volition. Gently, he asked, "Ginny, you did it, didn't you?" Ginny, overwhelmed with emotion, nodded, tears streaming down her face. "What did you do?" Percy interjected, confused and concerned. "I don't know why, but I was scared. I think he influenced me, so I threw him away," Ginny sobbed, revealing the source of her torment. "Who is he?" John pressed, seeking clarity. Ginny, barely able to speak through her tears, confessed, "Riddle's diary." This revelation left Percy in disbelief, as he struggled to comprehend the gravity of his sister's involvement with the monster from the Chamber of Secrets. John, with a sense of urgency in his voice, pressed for answers. "John, please, tell me what happened." After a moment of contemplation, John replied, "Initially, I suspected Ginny might have been chosen as the heir of Slytherin, but now it seems the diary might be the key." He paused, the name hanging in the air. Tom Riddle. That's Voldemort's real last name. The realization hit John like a cold wave. This diary had a direct connection to Voldemort. With a grave expression etched on his face, John inquired, "Where did you dispose of the diary?" It was imperative that he retrieve the diary before it fell into the wrong hands. Chapter 76. The Missing Diary and the Dueling Club. Three figures hurried through the corridors of Hogwarts Castle, an unusual combination of one Slytherin and two Gryffindors, one of whom was the Gryffindor prefect. They made their way to the second-floor girls' bathroom, pushing open the door and stepping inside. "Percy, calm down," John intervened as Percy's anger flared, his grip tightening on Ginny's shoulders to the point where she winced. "Sorry, Ginny," Percy quickly apologized, realizing his reaction was too harsh. "Can you tell us where it is?" Ginny, with trembling hands, pointed towards a sink. John and Percy exchanged puzzled looks and approached, only to find nothing there. "Is something missing?" John asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. Percy, unable to contain his frustration, turned sharply towards Ginny. "Are you sure you remember correctly?" he demanded, his voice raised. Ginny, tears welling up in her eyes, insisted, "I remember it was here." In a fit of anger, Percy punched the mirror, causing John to urgently stop him. "Percy, stop!" he exclaimed, then called out, "Myrtle, are you there?" "Of course I am," Myrtle responded, emerging from a broken toilet with a giggle. "There were 3 Gryffindor students here earlier. Ron and the others took the diary?" Percy surmised, recalling a previous incident involving the trio in the girls' bathroom. "Wait, Percy. Let's not jump to conclusions," John advised, suggesting they use Percy's position to discreetly search the Gryffindor common room without alarming anyone. "Keep it quiet until we find the person responsible. It's not just about Ginny." Percy agreed, understanding the gravity of the situation and the potential repercussions for both Ginny and the Weasley family. They decided to keep the matter secret, and John gave Ginny a Whomping Willow amulet for protection. "Wear this at all times and never take it off," he instructed sternly, and Ginny nodded, visibly shaken. After ensuring Ginny's safety, Percy and John parted ways. The next day, Percy sought out John, recounting how he had escorted Ginny back to the Gryffindor Tower and the subsequent encounter with the Weasley twins. Their curiosity and Percy's stern warning to keep an eye on Ginny had raised suspicions, but Percy was more concerned about their perception of him. "George and Fred must think I'm crazy," Percy sighed, regretting his harshness towards his brothers. John offered a sympathetic look, understanding the challenge of dealing with the mischievous twins. "Once we find the diary, we can put an end to all this. I'll leave Gryffindor in your hands, and please inform Penelope Clearwater for me," John said, his tone laced with a hint of teasing. Percy, caught off guard by John's knowledge of his secret relationship with Penelope, could only stammer in response. John smiled, revealing he had learned of their relationship during one of his patrols. Unbeknownst to Percy, John had access to the Marauders map, which had shown him Percy's frequent meetings with Penelope. This revelation left Percy astounded, realizing there was little he could keep hidden from John. John pocketed the Marauders map and left Percy looking puzzled. As December approached, Professor McGonagall began collecting the detention list, a prelude to the holiday season. John had initially planned to return home for Christmas, but the unresolved issue of the Chamber of Secrets meant he would stay at Hogwarts. He decided to send a letter to Mrs. Wick, including 2 wizard cards for his father, Watson Wick, who had developed a fondness for the collectibles after discovering them through a chocolate frog. John considered trading some with Ron, but decided against it, knowing his father preferred to collect them on his own. Neville Longbottom's appearance had become slightly leaner due to rigorous training. Draco Malfoy, noticing John's prowess in defense against the dark arts, sought him out for instruction. John devised a training plan for Draco, similar to Neville's, which included facing fears in the Screaming Shack. It was clear that Draco's courage was not much greater than Neville's. During a potions class, chaos ensued when an unidentified student threw a firecracker into a cauldron, causing an explosion. John, reacting quickly, deflected a flying potion with an invisible barrier, sparing himself from the mess. He noticed that, aside from himself, only Harry Potter was unaffected by the incident. Hermione Granger was mysteriously absent, leading John to suspect a conspiracy. "John Wick, you will be responsible for brewing the swelling reduction potion," Professor Snape announced, assigning John to remedy the situation despite his innocence. John accepted the task, earning extra points for his efforts. Continuing his investigation into the heir of Slytherin, John discreetly involved senior students from all 4 houses without raising alarm. The search led to many dormitories being ransacked, causing rumors of a thief at Hogwarts. Percy Weasley, vigilant of his brothers, particularly the mischievous Fred and George, found nothing but prank items in their possession. Ron Weasley's belongings were also thoroughly searched, to no avail. Just when John thought the situation would stabilize until Christmas, Gilderoy Lockhart stirred trouble by posting an announcement about a dueling club on the bulletin board. Confronting Lockhart, John expressed his disapproval of the initiative, especially since Lockhart expected John's assistance without offering anything in return. Lockhart, realizing he needed John's help, offered a gesture of friendship. "I hope Gilderoy Lockhart can become your friend," he said reluctantly. John, recognizing the value of connections, accepted Lockhart's offer and provided him with 2 spell rings and 2 amulets. The amulets contained the Iron Armor Curse, while the spell rings were enchanted with the Disarming Curse and the Petrification Curse, among others, showcasing a variety of defensive and offensive capabilities. Through these interactions, John continued to navigate the complexities of Hogwarts, balancing his role as a student with the responsibilities thrust upon him by the unfolding mystery of the Chamber of Secrets and the eccentricities of its inhabitants. The modifications John had made to the potions were no longer limited to a single use. They could now be utilized 3 times consecutively. This innovation, a direct outcome of John's advancements in alchemy, solidified Johnny the Silverhand's indispensable role within the Auror department. Lockhart, recognizing the immense value of this breakthrough, felt as though he had discovered a treasure. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the Crescent stage in the Great Hall, a creation of Lockhart's own design, was ready for the event. John was taken aback by Lockhart's audacity in choosing an assistant for the evening's demonstration, especially since the assistant was none other than Professor Snape. John couldn't help but express his astonishment, remarking, "This is simply unprecedented." The collaboration between Lockhart and Snape, 2 individuals from vastly different spheres within the wizarding world, was an unexpected development. Lockhart, known for his flamboyance and penchant for the dramatic, contrasted sharply with Snape's stern demeanor and serious approach to magic. The pairing was intriguing, to say the least, and promised an evening filled with surprises. As the audience gathered in the Great Hall, the air buzzed with anticipation. The Crescent stage, illuminated by enchanted lights that cast a soft glow over the assembled crowd, set the scene for what was to be a memorable demonstration. John, standing among the spectators, couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his contributions. His alchemical enhancements had not only increased the efficacy of the potions, but had also played a pivotal role in bringing together 2 unlikely collaborators for the benefit of the wizarding community. The event, conceived by Lockhart as a showcase of magical prowess and innovation, was about to begin. With Snape by his side, an air of solemnity and expertise complemented the spectacle that Lockhart was known for. As the curtains on the Crescent stage drew back, the audience leaned forward in their seats, eager to witness the fusion of alchemy and magic that was about to unfold. Chapter 77, Dueling Club and the Parseltongue Revelation. Inside the auditorium, the usual long tables had been replaced by a gilded stage, transforming the space into a grand arena. Above, the ceiling turned a velvety black, mirroring the night sky, while hundreds of candles illuminated the stage with a warm glow. The occasion, the Dueling Club, a novel concept at Hogwarts that had attracted almost the entire student body. Despite the lingering fear from the Chamber of Secrets incident, the students were eager to witness another display of heroism from John. reminiscent of his previous appearance on the dueling stage. As they entered, their eyes were immediately drawn to the flamboyantly dressed Professor Lockhart. His attire, though extravagant, was a testament to the meticulous lesson plan John had crafted for him, preventing Lockhart from suffering a complete debacle. To the public, Lockhart presented himself as a wizard who favored theory over practical exercises, yet his autobiographical knowledge seemed credible enough to maintain his reputation. However, Harry, who had first-hand experience with Lockhart's incompetence, especially after the incident involving his bones, remained skeptical. Lockhart, donning his sorcerer's robe, which was rather plain for his standards, called for silence. His smile, which had won the Witch Weekly's award for Most Charming Smile 5 times, beamed at the audience. "Professor Dumbledore has graciously permitted me to establish this dueling club," he announced, "to equip you with the necessary skills to defend yourselves. I've employed these techniques countless times for my own protection. John Wick, in particular, can attest to the effectiveness of my teachings." Lockhart's speech, though lengthy, was mercifully cut short as he introduced his assistant. The sight of Professor Snape stepping onto the stage caused Harry and Ron to exchange worried glances, questioning Lockhart's sanity. "Fear not, I shall return your potions teacher to you unharmed," Lockhart quipped, seemingly oblivious to the ominous aura emanating from Snape. Snape, with his characteristic cold demeanor, addressed the students. "It has come to my attention that some of you have taken to keeping roosters in your dormitories," he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "Let this dueling practice remind you of your identity as wizards." The mention of roosters alluded to the recent trend among students to raise them as a countermeasure against the basilisk rumored to reside in the Chamber of Secrets. The crowing of roosters, now a common morning disturbance, was a testament to the students' ingenuity and fear. After Snape's brief admonition, the duel commenced. Lockhart and Snape assumed the standard dueling stance, wands raised in front of them. At the count of 3, Snape launched the first spell, Expelliarmus. Contrary to Harry's expectations, Lockhart did not get thrown off the stage. Instead, an armor-like curse shielded him from the attack, leaving him momentarily stunned but unharmed. Snape's surprise was evident, but Lockhart quickly regained his composure, countering with a spell of his own. The duel evolved into an impressive exchange of spells, with Lockhart managing to defend against Snape's attacks. The students watched in awe, their cheers and gasps filling the auditorium. Lockhart, in particular, seemed to have won the admiration of many, especially among the female students, as he skillfully parried Snape's spells. The dueling club session, initially met with skepticism, turned into a spectacle of magical prowess, leaving the students both entertained and enlightened. Amidst the excitement, Harry couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and concern, wondering what other secrets and challenges lay hidden within the walls of Hogwarts. After a series of exchanges, Professor Snape's demeanor shifted towards seriousness. "Fuchsia, Levicorpus," he intoned, casting a spell that was promptly blocked by the iron armor charm. Lockhart, overly confident and not realizing his protective amulets were depleted, attempted to counter with a petrification spell. Snape, seizing the moment, launched a disarming spell that sent Lockhart flying, his wand slipping from his grasp. Lockhart, upon realizing his oversight, quickly interjected before Snape could advance further. He stood, laughing off the mishap. "You see, that was the disarming curse. I've lost my wand, but I thought it would be instructive to demonstrate." His words seemed to lack sincerity, a fact not lost on Harry and Ron, who exchanged skeptical looks. Lockhart continued, "Of course, I could have easily stopped it if I wanted to, just a little something to broaden your knowledge." He trailed off, noticing Snape's unamused expression, and quickly wrapped up. "That concludes our demonstration. Now let's have you split into pairs for a duel." The students, already entertained by the spectacle, were eager to begin. Snape, however, had other plans for Harry, pairing him with Malfoy instead of Ron. John, on the other hand, found himself without an opponent as the students remembered his previous display of skill and chose to steer clear. That was until Cedric Diggory, a 4th year from Hufflepuff, approached him. "Can I join you?" he asked, undeterred by John's reputation. "My name is Cedric Diggory." "Of course, Cedric," John replied, impressed by the boy's courage and demeanor. They exchanged polite greetings before commencing their duel. Cedric proved to be a formidable opponent, casting a skillful disarming spell that John narrowly countered. The duel was intense, with John ultimately gaining the upper hand through a combination of spells that left Cedric temporarily incapacitated. After lifting the spell, Cedric, still on the ground but now able to speak, expressed his admiration. "Too strong, John. You hardly seem like a student." His curiosity piqued. He asked if John aspired to be an auror, to which John nonchalantly replied, "Maybe, but aurors are not for me." Their duel stood out as a rare moment of seriousness in an otherwise chaotic session. Elsewhere, Hermione was seen abandoning her wand, engaging in a non-magical tussle with a Slytherin student, a clear sign that control had been lost. Lockhart attempted to regain order, but it was Snape who effectively managed the situation. He chose Harry and Malfoy for a demonstration, both eager to settle their scores. As they faced off, the tension was palpable, with Malfoy particularly keen on revenge for a previous humiliation. Harry immediately cast one of his most powerful curses. "Oolong out of the hole!" he shouted. The tip of his wand erupted, and from the billowing smoke, a long black snake emerged, landing with a thud on the floor between them. The sudden appearance of the snake caused the crowd to scream in alarm. Snape, having had enough of the spectacle, spoke up lazily, "Stay still, Potter. I'll take care of it." However, Lockhart, ever eager to demonstrate his supposed prowess, rushed forward and waved his wand. The black snake was propelled into the air, only to fall back down, now visibly more agitated. Justin Finch-Fletchley, who was standing close to the stage, froze as the black snake turned its attention towards him. Harry, intent on stopping the snake, opened his mouth to speak. "Let him go," he said, but the words that came out were in a chilling tone. Unbeknownst to Harry, he had spoken in Parseltongue. To the onlookers, it appeared as though Harry was commanding the snake to attack Justin. Just then, another voice cut through the tension. "Stop!" The black snake, about to launch itself, suddenly felt an overwhelming pressure and went limp. The crowd's eyes followed the source of the command, and upon seeing the figure, Justin immediately felt a wave of relief wash over him. He turned to Harry, anger flashing in his eyes. "What do you think you're doing? We've got John Wick here." Harry, confused and unaware of his unintentional use of Parseltongue, didn't understand the reaction. John Wick, with a gaze as deep and unfathomable as the ocean, pulled out his wand, and with a swift motion, turned the snake into black smoke. He then looked up at Harry, his intense gaze sending a shiver down Harry's spine. "Today's dueling club meeting is over. Everyone, disperse," John announced, his voice leaving no room for argument. He shot Lockhart a meaningful glance, and Lockhart, catching the hint, quickly announced the end of the session. However, the events of the day hinted at the brewing of a storm that was yet to come. Chapter 78. Rumors Stop at the Strong and Christmas. Harry Potter's ability to speak Parseltongue had become the talk of Hogwarts. During a particular incident in the auditorium, everyone witnessed Harry's unique skill, catapulting him into the center of rampant speculation. Some whispered that Harry might be the heir of Slytherin, while others approached John, hoping he would address this troubling development. John, however, urged them to abandon such thoughts. In a short span, Harry had become synonymous with the heir of Slytherin. There were even wild conspiracy theories suggesting that Voldemort had attempted to kill Harry out of fear that Harry would usurp his position as the Dark Lord. This notion was so absurd that it elicited laughter from John. A heavy snowstorm led to the cancellation of the afternoon herbology class. Professor McGonagall escorted Harry away for a discussion, leaving John in the auditorium. Percy Weasley joined him, sipping on warm pumpkin juice, and apologized for not finding anything suspicious in Harry's luggage, despite searching it 3 times. "Percy, you have to trust Harry. He can't be the heir," John said, shaking his head in a mix of frustration and reassurance. Percy nodded, though John could sense his lingering doubts. Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue had given John an idea about possibly using Harry to uncover the Chamber of Secrets, but with Harry now with Professor McGonagall, that plan would have to wait. "I'll prove he's not the heir," John promised Percy, who then left. Alone, John pulled out the Marauder's map to survey the castle. He noted that no one had been to a particular location for some time, except for Harry and his two friends. The basilisk, he reasoned, couldn't escape the Chamber of Secrets without someone opening it, which meant Hogwarts was safe for now. John pondered what the trio could be doing in the girls' bathroom, recalling the scent of a potion brewing during his last visit. It seemed unlikely they were brewing potions there, but then again, they didn't have access to the Room of Requirement like he did. Meanwhile, Harry was grappling with the rumors and his own identity after a conversation with Dumbledore, who had inquired about his knowledge of the chamber. Harry chose to withhold information, fearing the implications of his ability to hear voices others couldn't. The Sorting Hat's suggestion that he belonged in Slytherin only added to his turmoil. Hermione noticed Harry's distress and suggested seeking John's help. Harry remembered a duel where he saw John's eyes resemble those of a snake, which made him hesitant. However, Hermione assured him that John would be willing to help a friend. With a mix of apprehension and hope, Harry approached John on the castle's covered bridge. John greeted him with understanding, immediately addressing Harry's concerns about being the heir of Slytherin. "Stop worrying. You are the savior, not the heir of Slytherin," John said with a chuckle, finding the idea ludicrous. Harry, initially annoyed by John's laughter, was taken aback by his own reaction. John's laughter ceased, and he looked at Harry seriously. "You are not the heir of Slytherin, at least not now," he said, adding with a light chuckle, "Rumors only stop with the strong, Harry. Those who are truly strong don't concern themselves with lineage." Harry felt a sense of relief and understanding. John's words resonated with him, offering a new perspective on strength and how it could silence baseless rumors. "You can't expect everyone to be like this. The strong lead the weak. That's just how it is," John concluded, leaning on the railing of the bridge, his gaze fixed on the horizon, leaving Harry to ponder the true meaning of strength and how it could shape his path at Hogwarts. Standing on the corridor bridge, John Wick gazed into the distance at the landscape blanketed in snowflakes. Christmas had arrived. While many students had left Hogwarts for the holiday season, a significant number remained, including some Muggle-born wizards. They felt a sense of security with John around, especially after he had defended Justin Finch at the dueling club. This act had left such an impression that some students began to regard John as their guardian, placing pictures of him battling the basilisk by their bedsides as a form of protection. Upon waking, John found himself inundated with packages, one of which was from Cedric. It contained a stylish new bag, seemingly chosen with John's tastes in mind. With the sheer volume of gifts, John decided it would take a full day to open them all, and opted to do so later that night. Exiting his dormitory, John encountered Daphne and Pansy. He found it odd that they hadn't gone home for the holidays, but didn't dwell on it. Draco Malfoy was already waiting for him in the common room, complaining about the early start after a late night. However, Malfoy's late night was spent preparing a training project for John, indicating his desire to strengthen his own abilities. This was particularly after his less-than-stellar performance at the dueling club, where his spells had no effect on Harry Potter. Together, they headed to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom for a more spacious training environment. John brought out a boggart from a cabinet, a familiar sight in his classes, and they began their training session, with John instructing and Malfoy practicing. As evening approached, John had to conclude their session to visit the Room of Requirement. Malfoy, on his way back, encountered Goyle and Crabbe, unaware that they were actually Harry and Ron in disguise. Malfoy, ever the show-off, unwittingly shared sensitive information with them, including secrets about the Chamber of Secrets. Back in the Room of Requirement, John lamented the difficulty of brewing the Felix Felicis, also known as liquid luck. Despite his advanced alchemy skills, the potion's complexity and the precision required in its creation proved challenging. He then turned his attention to enchanting his sword, Wick, contemplating the potential enhancements magical creature components could offer. However, cautious of ruining the Muggle-made sword, he decided to postpone the enchantment. Experimenting with wandless magic, John focused on channeling his emotions to drive his spells. He discovered that anger, though difficult to control, could be a powerful catalyst. This revelation marked a significant moment in his magical exploration, blending his innate abilities with his growing understanding of the wizarding world's complexities. Anger, in its purest and most intense form, can be a powerful catalyst. This was a revelation to John, who discovered that the mere thought of being forced to consume stargazing pie was enough to ignite a fierce anger within him. This emotional surge proved to him that it was indeed possible to cast spells without the aid of a wand. After several attempts, John found that under the grip of intense anger, he could successfully perform simple spells. The castle, with its never-ending supply of meals, offered John a chance to relax after his rigorous training. As he made his way to dinner, he encountered Goyle and Crab, who seemed to be recovering from a state of confusion. John found their disoriented state somewhat odd. The encounter was brief, and John couldn't help but ponder the implications of his newfound ability. The realization that emotions could fuel magic without the traditional means opened up a world of possibilities for him. It was a revelation that could change the way magic was understood and practiced. As he continued on his way to dinner, John's mind was abuzz with thoughts of what this discovery could mean for his future at Hogwarts. The idea that he could harness his emotions, particularly anger, as a source of magical power was both exhilarating and daunting. The potential for both innovation and chaos was immense, and John knew that he was treading on uncharted territory. The dinner that evening was a lively affair, with the great hall buzzing with the chatter and laughter of students. John, however, was only partially present, his mind still wrestling with the implications of his discovery. The ability to cast spells without a wand was a secret that he knew he had to explore further, but with great caution. The power of raw emotion was a double-edged sword, and John was acutely aware of the need to control and understand it before it could control him. As the evening wore on, John's thoughts drifted back to Goyle and Crab. Their dazed state could not have been a mere coincidence. Could it be related to his experiments with wandless magic? Or was there another, more sinister force at play within the castle walls? These questions lingered in John's mind as he finished his dinner, the weight of the unknown pressing heavily on his shoulders. The journey ahead was fraught with danger and discovery, and John knew that he had to be prepared for whatever lay in store. Chapter 79, Uncle's Gift and Catwoman. Hermione John's tendency to keep to himself had become well known among the Slytherins. It was rare to see him at dinner, even during the Christmas feast. By the time John arrived, the dinner party had concluded. However, as he sat down, a steaming turkey, potatoes, and bread magically appeared on the golden plate before him. "Thank you," he murmured, unsure if the house elf working in the kitchen could hear his gratitude. Due to his frequent absences from dinner, John had become acquainted with the house elves in the kitchen. They always saved a portion for him, and today was no exception. He sliced a piece from the turkey, took out the little jar of old godmother sauce he had left, and spread it on the bread. With the turkey and bread enhanced by the sauce, John savored his meal with narrowed eyes of satisfaction. After dinner, John returned to the Slytherin dungeon. Malfoy, looking furious and wary, confronted him. "Are you John?" he demanded. John, puzzled, replied, "Of course I am. Evidence." Malfoy, resembling a child who had been deceived, already had his wand in hand, ready to retaliate if John couldn't prove his identity. After a moment's thought, John gestured for Malfoy to come closer. Despite his wariness, Malfoy approached. In a swift movement reminiscent of a venomous snake, John grabbed Malfoy's wand hand, twisting it until the wand dropped. He then seized Malfoy's collar with his other hand, lifting him with ease. Gasping for air, Malfoy quickly capitulated. "I believe it. I believe it." "It would have been better if you had realized this sooner," John remarked, releasing Malfoy. As John sat down, Tom, the cat, ran over to be petted. Clearing his throat, Malfoy mentioned, "There are two guys impersonating Goyle and Crab." Convinced that no one in Hogwarts but John possessed such strength, Malfoy vowed revenge on the imposters. "If you let me know who it is, I'll show them the power of a curse." "Masquerading as Goyle and Crab? Could it be Polyjuice Potion?" John mused, stroking Tom's head as the cat settled comfortably. He suspected the trio, as no one else would undertake such a scheme. "What did you tell them?" John inquired, already guessing the answer, but curious about the specifics. Malfoy hesitated before admitting, I basically spilled everything. Draco, it's time for you to change your habit, John said, exasperated. Malfoy, embarrassed, redirected his frustration towards Goyle and Crabbe for their tardiness. We ate a cake and passed out, the two explained, equally aggrieved. All right, that's enough, John said, standing up. As he was about to leave, Malfoy stopped him with a final piece of information. John, they also asked about you. Me? John was taken aback, but Malfoy confirmed. I said you often disappear without a trace. John pondered this, doubting it was a suspicion against him, as he was a true Muggle-born wizard. He assumed Harry had asked out of casual curiosity about his life in Slytherin. Dismissing the thought, John turned his attention to the pile of Christmas presents awaiting him. Most were from his pen pals, as he believed in maintaining good relationships and had also sent out many gifts for Christmas. Among the presents, Neville had sent a beautiful glass ball that projected stars when placed next to a candle. Hermione gifted a delicate quill, Ron a wizard chess set, and Harry a Quidditch book. His mother sent cufflinks, and his father a wizard hat made of Muggle materials and handcrafted. Accompanying his father's gift was a letter hinting that John should bring home a golden snitch, revealing his interest in Quidditch. During the summer vacation, John had received numerous gifts and letters, one of which was particularly blunt from Mrs. Wick, simply stating, Tell your father to go to hell, don't listen to him. As he neared the end of his pile of presents, John's attention was caught by the last one, curiously sent from his own home. Inside the package was a letter that read, My dearest Yadani, I hope this gift finds you well. It's unfortunate you couldn't join us for Christmas this year, especially with the family turmoil. Your uncles are caught up in it too. Father is aging, and there have been those attempting to exploit him, though I've managed to fend them off. Let's leave those matters aside. Do you remember the brown bear whose cubs grew stronger than their mother? I hope you can visit next year. I've yet to take you hunting. With love, your uncle, Seryoja Jovanovic. Yadani Jovanovic was a name only used by his grandfather's side of the family. The letter, sent by his uncle, had been forwarded by Mrs. Wick. A wave of nostalgia washed over John. Despite the distance and their unusual hobbies, like wrestling with brown bears, his uncle's affection was evident through their consistent gifting. Curious about his uncle's present, John eagerly opened the book-sized gift box to find a sleek, expensive-looking black box. Inside, a matte black object rested, its design unfamiliar yet intriguing. Upon closer inspection, John realized it was a pistol, complete with a synthetic handle, a 9mm caliber, and a magazine capacity of 17 rounds. The realization that his uncle had gifted him a gun left John bewildered, questioning the sanity of both himself and his uncle. A wizard with a gun? He mused, noting the limited ammunition provided, perhaps a sign his uncle didn't intend for it to be used recklessly. Despite the absurdity, John decided to safely store the gun away, deeming it too extreme a gift for a 12-year-old. The following day, upon hearing that Hermione had been hospitalized, John, considering her a good friend, visited her in the school hospital. To his surprise, he was greeted by a face obscured by fur. Hermione, mortified, urged him to leave. John, unable to resist, joked about her wanting to emulate Professor McGonagall, only to learn Hermione's condition was the result of a mishap with Millicent Bulstrode's cat during a dueling club session. Suppressing laughter, John found Hermione's new appearance somewhat endearing, though he wisely refrained from petting her to avoid any potential backlash. Before Hermione could express her frustration with a pillow, John quickly conjured a curtain for privacy and cheekily requested the badge under her pillow, recalling he had left it with Harry previously and forgotten about it. The mention of Hermione and Harry sharing a bed was a mix-up, a humorous misunderstanding in the midst of the chaos. John retrieved his badge, his expression one of mild concern as he pondered the health protocols of the school hospital. Hermione, observing this, couldn't hide her confusion. John, noticing her puzzled look, explained nonchalantly, After Harry was attacked by a bludger during the last match, I've been thinking it's crucial we find out who was behind it. It appears the heir of Slytherin hasn't targeted him yet. Okay, Hermione replied, a hint of guilt seeping into her voice at the mention of the heir. With a plan in mind, they decided to transform into Slytherins to question Malfoy about the incident. After their conversation, John bid Hermione farewell and left the school hospital, his mind racing with thoughts of their next move. Their investigation into the attack on Harry was not just about finding the culprit, but also about understanding the deeper machinations at play within Hogwarts. The mention of the heir of Slytherin brought an ominous air to their quest, suggesting that the events unfolding were part of a larger, more sinister plot. As John walked away from the hospital, he couldn't help but feel the weight of their mission. The safety of their friend and the peace of the school rested on their shoulders. With each step, he resolved to uncover the truth, no matter how dangerous the path might become. Chapter 80: Snape's Suspicions and the Durmstrang Letter. The Christmas holidays at Hogwarts were proving to be less interesting than usual. Apart from his daily observations of the Marauders map, John found amusement in making Draco Malfoy experience a fraction of Neville Longbottom's frequent discomforts. "You can give up any time. I never force anyone," John said nonchalantly. He stood outside the humping willow, watching as Malfoy tried to evade the violently swinging branches. "Shut up, John," Malfoy retorted, already nursing a few bruises. Initially, he had been perplexed by the notion that wizards needed to train their physical dodging abilities. However, after witnessing John effortlessly dodge 3 of his curses in succession, Malfoy began to understand the importance of physical agility. John's voice dripped with sarcasm. "You were wise not to let Goyle and the others come. Your current state is quite embarrassing." He continued, "A Malfoy, one of the Sacred 28, unable to outmaneuver a tree? Perhaps your father is correct. With your family's wealth, you can afford to live a life devoid of purpose." His taunts were sharp, cutting deep into Malfoy's pride. "Look at you, scampering like a rat chased by a broom. How much did your family donate to Hogwarts to secure your admission?" John mused aloud, taking a bite of his turkey sandwich, his demeanor exuding disdain. Malfoy, seething with resentment, questioned internally why he should endure such humiliation while watching John, a Muggle-born wizard, revel in his discomfort. The noble pureblood within him revolted. Overcome with rage and unable to withstand further humiliation, Malfoy aimed his wand at the Whomping Willow, casting a spell in a fit of anger. Just as the spell neared its target, an iron armor charm materialized, absorbing the impact. The first layer of the charm shattered, but the second layer held firm, protecting the tree. Enraged, the Whomping Willow lashed out with even greater ferocity. Malfoy, caught off guard, was moments away from a painful strike when John intervened, casting a levitation charm to pull Malfoy to safety. "Your spell's power has increased since the last attempt. Remember this feeling," John commended, intrigued by the correlation between emotional intensity and spell potency. Malfoy's anger had inadvertently boosted his spell's strength by a significant margin, though at the cost of precision. John made a note of this observation, pondering the implications. Malfoy, still fuming, realized that John's training sessions were not just about improving his magical prowess, but also about controlling his emotions. Typically, John would conclude these sessions with a sleeping charm, allowing Malfoy to rest and recover from the day's exertions. "Time for another rest," John declared, casting the sleeping charm before Malfoy could protest. Goyle and Crabbe, accustomed to their friend's frequent bouts of exhaustion, carried him back to the castle. John reflected on the day's events, recognizing the potential dangers of unchecked anger. He considered pausing their sessions, unaware that his actions were being closely monitored. In the shadows, Severus Snape observed with a growing sense of unease. He sought out Albus Dumbledore, his expression devoid of its usual disdain, replaced by a palpable anger. "Dumbledore, it's time you intervened with John Wick," Snape insisted upon entering the headmaster's office. Dumbledore, surprised by Snape's tone, looked up from his work. "What seems to be the problem, Severus?" "He's amassing power, slowly but surely. You cannot be oblivious to this," Snape argued, his past as a Death Eater allowing him to recognize the signs. John Wick, with his exceptional talent, charisma, and influence, reminded Snape of another dark figure from the past. "Aside from his blood status, this boy is a perfect echo of him," Snape concluded, his concern evident. There was a hint of madness in his voice, as if it were dredged from the depths of a dark, watery abyss. He's emulating the Dark Lord. He refuses to be just another face in the crowd. His takeover of Slytherin House in just one school year is proof enough, Snape argued, his voice laced with a mix of excitement and concern. Dumbledore responded with his characteristic calm. "Calm down, Severus. He's only a child." "Voldemort was once just a child," Snape countered, emphasizing each word, daring even to utter the name of the feared Dark Lord. His concern was palpable. "John Wick," he sneered, his voice taking on a mocking tone. "Don't pretend you're unaware of his actions. He dabbled in dark magic in his first year, demonstrated patience and ambition, and now even Draco Malfoy, in his pride, bows to him." "Dumbledore, we both know what this signifies. The heir of Slytherin. How can you be so sure he isn't?" Snape pressed, his frustration evident. "Severus." Dumbledore's voice grew stern, bringing a momentary calm to Snapey. "That's a grave accusation." Gazing thoughtfully at the sword of Gryffindor, Dumbledore spoke softly. "I believe John Wick is different. He has family, friends, and love." Snape's demeanor had cooled, but his gaze remained icy as he looked at Dumbledore. "I hope you're right. The wizarding world cannot afford to lose another Dumbledore." With those final words, Snape departed, leaving Dumbledore alone with his thoughts. The specter of Voldemort haunted Snape, having claimed the life of his beloved. Dumbledore was acutely aware of this, as well as the fact that Voldemort, in his second year, had not been as remarkable as John. John's companions were drawn to him not by blood, but by strength, a stark contrast to the past. Dumbledore sighed, looking at the sword. "I hope it's you, John." He reflected on the time the Chamber of Secrets was opened, acknowledging that if not for Harry, he couldn't imagine anyone more suitable than John to face such challenges. If it's John, then he won't become the next Dark Lord. Snape was correct. The wizarding world lacked a second Dumbledore. The emergence of a third Dark Lord was something they could ill afford. Unbeknownst to John, his actions had sparked a heated debate between Snape and Dumbledore. He was preoccupied with opening an envelope delivered by an owl that seemed on the brink of collapse. The seal was unfamiliar to John, depicting a bat clutching a sword, and the letter bore the address of Durmstrang. Inside he found a letter and what appeared to be a scale. "Fire dragon scales?" he wondered aloud. The letter, written in elegant script, was cryptic. "I'm here to find you." John was puzzled. "Feels like a threat, doesn't it?" He considered the possibility of a prank by the Weasley twins, but dismissed it upon seeing the sender's name. Hadric Edgar. Memories of a summer duel in the forest with the Durmstrang student flashed through his mind. "Why find me?" John pondered. He couldn't recall any actions on his part that might have provoked such a message. Deciding not to dwell on it, he set the matter aside and headed to the Room of Requirement. John's current project was an attempt to recreate the Marauder's map. Given that the original was the work of students, he reasoned that with his level 3 alchemy skills, he should be able to replicate it. His goal wasn't just to duplicate the map, but to understand and apply its underlying magic, which allowed it to track individuals within Hogwarts. Inside the Room of Requirement, John began by adding ingredients to the Felicity elixir. The potion was nearing completion, and he anticipated finishing it by the start of the next term, which was also when he planned to explore the Slytherin chamber.